Chapter 61 Climax Part 1 Yaoer. I. When Li Minkin Herod, I want you to have me in your eyes, including in your heart. His face reddened instantly. He was unable to say anything for quite a while. Haha, Feng Jiao laughed out loud. Yaoer, you're making fun of me. Li Minkin was a little annoyed by her sudden laughter, so he turned around and walked away. It was almost impossible for Feng Jiao to catch chapter up to him. It hurts. Feng Jiao wanted to chapter race after him, but she didn't see the stones on the road in front of her, and she tripped and fell all of a sudden. Bastardly Mincan. Feng Jiao had never felt so weak before. Yaoer, what happened? He turned at once, startled by her sudden outburst of rage. Only then did he realize that Feng Jiao had twisted her legs again. It's all your fault. Feng Jiao was so angry that she didn't forget to smash his chapterist with her fist. I'll help you apply the medicine. Li Minkin wasn't angry at all. Instead, he smiled. Fortunately, he had some medicine by his side. This time, he could resolve the urgent need. No need. I can do it myself. Give me the bottle. I don't want you to apply the medicine. You only know how to look at other girls, humph. Li Minkin didn't know about Feng Jiao's thinking. Yaoer, I was the one who helped you with your foot injury last time. I'll do it this time. Fuck off. I don't want to twist my ankle for the third time. Feng Jiao said coldly. All right. It's my fault. Li Minkin only felt that he was an elementary-ish chapterer who had met a soldier. He couldn't make sense of the situation and wanted to save time. He simply closed her acupoint and carried her back to his room at the Feng Yun Hotel. No matter how Feng Jiao refused, Li Minkin still gently rubbed her ankle, applying the medicine with red face. Feng Jiao raised her head to look at the pretty boy who was smearing medicine. She suddenly remembered that she hadn't enjoyed the pleasure during this trip to Suyang City. Now that Li Minkin was giving in to her, she felt that her chapterance had come. If she couldn't pounce on him this time, she didn't mind to seduce him. Since you admit your mistake, then can you compensate me? Her smile became more and more coquettish and chapter-arming. It was as ethereal as the wind, but it made one feel an extreme greed and infatuation for her. What compensation? Li Minkin's face was filled with confusion. Why did he have to compensate him? Moreover, Feng Jiao's coquettish smile made him want to run away. But damn it, she was so enchapteranting. At this moment, Feng Jiao was looking at him with burning eyes. She slightly opened her collar, revealing her enchapteranting collarbone as she ordered, "Kiss me quickly. You owe me this." Li Minkin felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. Did this little girl really have to seduce him so blatantly? He was a straight man. Last time, she was halfway up the mountain to Juyin Temple, but this time, she was in a hotel. Li Minkin lowered his head, his fiery gaze landing on her body. The snow-white dress fell off her shoulders. A few strands of jet-black hair fell to the side of her fair and rosy chapteriques, revealing her beautiful snow-white swan's neck. At this moment, she weakly and gently leaned against his chapterist, her pure eyes looking at him, as her hands unobediently untied his cloud-patterned glass belt. Feng Jiao slowly raised her eyes and saw his picturesque eyebrows, thin and beautiful lips. Whi chapter made her heart beat faster and faster. So, she hugged him, and after undoing his belt, it became Mu chapter more convenient. Her small hands swiftly chaptered in. The little Mincan stunned her. My God, what a big size. Yaoer, you can't. At that split second, Li Minkin suddenly remembered the jade qilin she had taken out before she had played Beauty Under the Moon. That's Howhin's stuff. So how could she have it? Or she was his woman. Why not? Feng Jiao was a little angry. She had twisted her leg to accompany him, but what was he still hesitating for? Can you tell me what your relationship is with the King of Qin? Li Minkin nervously grabbed onto her restless, delicate hand as he asked in a jealous tone. It doesn't matter. It's just that he occasionally owes me a favor. Feng Jiao carefully recalled that she really didn't have anything to do with the fourth son of the emperor, Xinyuan Howhin. At most, she saved him once. She neglected that Xinyuan Howhin Hnd saved herself twice. It's that simple? Li Mincan was dumbfounded. Was it really that simple? Do you think I look like a liar? Feng Jiao raised her slender fingers and drew a circle in front of his muscular chapterist. Hard to say. She was so clever. It was hard to guarantee that she wouldn't lie to him. Li Minkin's heart it chaptered at her sweet torture, but he said hard to say. It's true. What I said is true. I'm not very familiar with King of Qin. You should believe me, Minkan, okay? Feng Jiao faintly smiled. Her clear eyes were full of hope, and her body was full of chapter arm. She hugged his head and sent out a hot kiss with a smack. The pity Li Minkan was a virgin, and his heart had been moved by her actions. At this moment, he didn't want to think about anything else, and his strong and forceful arms firmly hugged her. All right, I believe you. Li Minkan's fair, handsome face was as red as the multicolored light, dazzling to the eye. But it's getting late and we're going to have dinner soon. Let's go downstairs and eat. Although he wanted very Mu Chapter to do something to the enchanting goblin beneath him, it was time for dinner. Feng Jiao didn't listen to him. Earlier, she was also stimulated by his kiss, so how could she let him go so easily? No, just make it up to me. What's more, this bed is so soft, Minkan, Feng Jiao called out in a seductive voice. At this critical moment, she didn't mind using her seduction skill to achieve her goal of being a man-hunter. Li Minkan was no fool, so he naturally knew what she meant. Immediately, the red on his handsome face spread to his neck. How dare she seduce him? He had to take a deep breath to control his longing for her curvaceous curves. He was afraid that if he lost control of himself, he would defile her beauty. But he had met an extraordinary woman, but beauty with a first-rate seduction skill, so he was completely finished. Li Minkan involuntarily tore off her pink bellflower bra and pressed her onto the wide bed, causing her coquettish moan to disappear into his lips. His heavy body pressed against her, and he couldn't help but kiss her. At Su Chapter a wonderful moment, there was a knock on the door. Young Master Li, Prince invites you downstairs to have dinner together. I will go down immediately. Damn it. He was now a pillar of glory. At this moment, Li Minkan was sucking on her porcelain neck. Yaoer, it seems like we can only continue after dinner. He stood up from her and groaned. If you have to blame something, blame that King of Jing. Why did he let others disturb us? Feng Jiao was also very unhappy. Was it easy for her? Coming to the ancient times, she had only eaten one pretty man, Yi Weiyang. This one in front of her, she carefully used her chapter arm to make him unable to control his lust. Xinyuan Haoyu sent someone to get word to him at the most crucial time. Was that placing obstacles in the way? She was so angry and put her pretty face in the quilt. She had only made half it way with him, and it was so infuriating. Go ahead and eat. I have no appetite. She didn't want to see Xinyuan Haoyu in the slightest. Li Minkan also wanted to stay with her, but Xinyuan Haoyu had sent someone to pass on a message. It indicated that Xinyuan Haoyu's people had already discovered Yaoer in the same room with him. You go have dinner with him. Just say that I'm not feeling well and have already gone to sleep. Feng Jiao said lazily with her eyes closed. Li Minkan only smiled, gently caressing her hair. His tone was full of apology as he said, Let's go down together. In the night, I will think of a way to compensate you. Really? Minkan, you're not lying to me, are you? Feng Jiao didn't believe him. Do I look like a liar to you? He gave her back what she had just said. She pouted angrily. Oh, how annoying. Let's have dinner together. Damn Minkan. Yaoer, am I really that despicable? After hearing Feng Jiao's words, he gently smiled and carried her into his arms as he asked, No, let's pack up and go downstairs to eat dinner. Feng Jiao's smile was pure and sweet. All right. He smiled and nodded, his long fingers curling around her hair, the corners of his lips slightly raised. Feng Yun Hotel in Bao Xian Town was almost the same level as Xie Chapterin Hotel. It was a hotel with a complete set of accommodation, food, and leisure. The interior of the hotel was elegantly decorated. There were more than 20 tables in the hall, and emerald green grass hung from the ceiling. The extravagance was filled with a few hints of delicacy, perfectly outlining the extraordinary of Feng Yun Hotel. Minkan, Jiao? So what the secret guard had reported was true. The two of them had been in Li Minkin's room for nearly an hour. What had happened between them? He then thought back to the scene he saw on the street and felt a trace of jealousy in his heart. He couldn't help but raise his voice. See them go downstairs together? Xianyuan Haoyu's expression became a little displeased, but he didn't immediately question them, only asked with a casual teasing tone, "How did you eat roast duck in Minkin's room?" Hearing those words, Feng Zhiyao's heart was pounding wildly. Damn, what did Xianyuan Haoyu know? Li Minkin didn't comment and explained with a smile. After eating the roast duck, I went out with her to buy some snacks. I brought her back after she twisted her ankle on the way back. Right after the medicine was applied, you sent someone to call for dinner. Is that so? Xianyuan Haoyu felt that something had chapter-arranged between Li Minkan and Feng Zhiyao. Feng Zhiyao nodded. With Zi Yun's support, she sat down shakily. Xianyuan Haoyu inadvertently looked up and saw Feng Zhiyao throwing flirtatious glance at Li Minkan. Now, even the most delicious food of the whole world was in front of him. He couldn't finish it. Chapter 62 Climax Part 1 Yaoer. When Li Minkan Herod, I want you to have me in your eyes, including in your heart. His face reddened instantly. He was unable to say anything for quite a while. Haha, Feng Zhiyao laughed out loud. Yaoer, you're making fun of me. Li Minkan was a little annoyed by her sudden laughter, so he turned around and walked away. It was almost impossible for Feng Zhiyao to catch up to him. It hurts. Feng Zhiyao wanted to chapter race after him, but she didn't see the stones on the road in front of her, and she tripped and fell all of a sudden. Bastard Li Minkan. Feng Zhiyao had never felt so weak before. Yaoer, what happened? He turned at once, startled by her sudden outburst of rage. Only then did he realize that Feng Zhiyao had twisted her legs again. It's all your fault. Feng Zhiyao was so angry that she didn't forget to smash his chapterist with her fist. I'll help you apply the medicine. Li Minkan wasn't angry at all. Instead, he smiled. Fortunately, he had some medicine by his side. This time, he could resolve the urgent need. No need. I can do it myself. Give me the bottle. I don't want you to apply the medicine. You only know how to look at other girls, humph. Li Minkan didn't know about Feng Zhiyao's thinking. Yaoer, I was the one who helped you with your foot injury last time. I'll do it this time. Fuck off. I don't want to twist my ankle for the third time. Feng Zhiyao said coldly. All right. It's my fault. Li Minkan only felt that he was an elementary chapterer who had met a soldier. He couldn't make sense of the situation and wanted to save time. He simply closed her acupoint and carried her back to his room at the Feng Yun Hotel. No matter how Feng Zhiyao refused, Li Minkan still gently rubbed her ankle, applying the medicine with red face. Feng Zhiyao raised her head to look at the pretty boy who was smearing medicine. She suddenly remembered that she hadn't enjoyed the pleasure during this trip to Suyang City. Now that Li Minkan was giving in to her, she felt that her chapterance had come. If she couldn't pounce on him this time, she didn't mind to seduce him. Since you admit your mistake, then can you compensate me? Her smile became more and more coquettish and chapter-arming. It was as ethereal as the wind, but it made one feel an extreme greed and infatuation for her. What compensation? Li Minkan's face was filled with confusion. Why did he have to compensate him? Moreover, Feng Zhiyao's coquettish smile made him want to run away. But damn it, she was so enchapteranting. At this moment, Feng Zhiyao was looking at him with burning eyes. She slightly opened her collar, revealing her enchapteranting collarbone as she ordered, "Kiss me quickly. You owe me this." Li Minkan felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. Did this little girl really have to seduce him so blatantly? He was a straight man. At this critical moment, she didn't mind using her seduction skill to achieve her goal of being a man-hunter. Li Minkan was no fool, so he naturally knew what she meant. Immediately, the red on his handsome face spread to his neck. How dare she seduce him? He had to take a deep breath to control his longing for her curvaceous curves. He was afraid that if he lost control of himself, he would defile her beauty. But he had met an extraordinary woman, but beauty with a first-rate seduction skill, so he was completely finished. Li Minkin involuntarily tore off her pink bellflower bra and pressed her onto the wide bed, causing her coquettish moan to disappear into his lips. His heavy body pressed against her, and he couldn't help but kiss her. At Su Chapter A Wonderful Moment, there was a knock on the door. Young Masterly, Prince invites you downstairs to have dinner together. I will go down immediately. Damn it. He was now a pillar of glory. At this moment, Li Minkan was sucking on her porcelain neck. Yaoer, it seems like we can only continue after dinner. He stood up from her and groaned. If you have to blame something, blame that king of Jing. Why did he let others disturb us? Feng Zhiyao was also very unhappy. Was it easy for her? Coming to the ancient times, she had only eaten one pretty man, Yi Weiyang. This one in front of her, she carefully used her chapter arm to make him unable to control his lust. Xinyuan Haoyu sent someone to get word to him at the most crucial time. Was that placing obstacles in the way? She was so angry and put her pretty face in the quilt. She had only made half it way with him, and it was so infuriating. Go ahead and eat. I have no appetite. She didn't want to see Xinyuan Haoyu in the slightest. Li Minkan also wanted to stay with her, but Xinyuan Haoyu had sent someone to pass on a message. It indicated that Xinyuan Haoyu's people had already discovered Yaoer in the same room with him. You go have dinner with him. Just say that I'm not feeling well and have already gone to sleep. Feng Zhiyao said lazily with her eyes closed. Li Minkan only smiled, gently caressing her hair. His tone was full of apology as he said, Let's go down together. In the night, I will think of a way to compensate you. Really? Minkan, you're not lying to me, are you? Feng Zhiyao didn't believe him. Do I look like a liar to you? He gave her back what she had just said. She pouted angrily. Oh, how annoying. Let's have dinner together. Damn Minkan. Yaoer, am I really that despicable? After hearing Feng Zhiyao's words, he gently smiled and carried her into his arms as he asked, No, let's pack up and go downstairs to eat dinner. Feng Zhiyao's smile was pure and sweet. All right. He smiled and nodded, his long fingers curling around her hair, the corners of his lips slightly raised. Feng Yun Hotel in Baoxian Town was almost the same level as Xie Chapterin Hotel. It was a hotel with a complete set of accommodation, food, and leisure. The interior of the hotel was elegantly decorated. There were more than 20 tables in the hall, and emerald green grass hung from the ceiling. The extravagance was filled with a few hints of delicacy, perfectly outlining the extraordinary of Feng Yun Hotel. Minkan, Zhiyao? So what the secret guard had reported was true. The two of them had been in Li Minkan's room for nearly an hour. What had happened between them? He then thought back to the scene he saw on the street and felt a trace of jealousy in his heart. He couldn't help but raise his voice. See them go downstairs together. Xinyuan Haoyu's expression became a little displeased, but he didn't immediately question them, only asked with a casual teasing tone, How did you eat roast duck in Minkan's room? Hearing those words, Feng Zhiyao's heart was pounding wildly. Damn, what did Xinyuan Haoyu know? Li Minkan didn't comment and explained with a smile. After eating the roast duck, I went out with her to buy some snacks. I brought her back after she twisted her ankle on the way back. Right after the medicine was applied, you sent someone to call for dinner. Is that so? Xinyuan Haoyu felt that something had chapter-arranged between Li Minkan and Feng Zhiyao. Feng Zhiyao nodded. With Zi Yun's support, she sat down shakily. Xinyuan Haoyu inadvertently looked up and saw Feng Zhiyao throwing flirtatious glance at Li Minkan. Now, even the most delicious food of the whole world was in front of him. He couldn't finish it. Chapter 62 Climax Part 2. All right, I'm full. You eat. Xinyuan Haoyu threw down his chapter sticks and left his seat. He clearly only ate a few. Why isn't he eating anymore? Then did Feng Zhiyao realize that the big boss had only eaten a little bit before leaving? Perhaps it's because the food doesn't suit his tastes. Li Minkan looked at her lovingly before taking the initiative to scoop up some braised pork and put it into her small bowl. Sigh. He really is a strange person. Li Minkan, I hate eating fat. She had always stayed away from fat flesh in order to maintain her lithe figure. Be good, just a little. Look at you. You are so skinny. Li Minkin tried his best to persuade her, but the listeners simply did not hear what he said. How am I weak? This is a standard body. Ah, you can't understand. I'm very standard right now anyway. Didn't you see how beautiful I was? Feng Zhiyao retorted as she put the braised pork back into his bowl. Actually, Minkan, you should eat more meat. If you're too skinny, then I'll just hug a bamboo pole and roll around. How uncomfortable it would be. Although these words were said in Li Minkin's ears, when he heard these words, he spat out all the rice in his mouth out laughing. Yaoer, when you say something like this again, can you not say it during the meal? Li Minkin gracefully took the muslin handkerchief she handed to wipe away the white rice grains on the corner of his mouth. Ha ha ha. It's a joke. I got it, my dear young Master Li. Feng Zhiyao covered her mouth and snickered. Li Minkan was actually quite cute, at least slightly more pleasing to the eye than the prince upstairs. Tonight, the sky was dark. There was no light from far or near. Even the stars in the sky had disappeared into the clouds. The surroundings were completely silent. There was a depressing and irritating heat in the air. Feng Zhiyao wanted to ask Ziyun to go away after eating some fruits and sneaking into Li Minkin's room to finish what they didn't finish earlier. Unfortunately, just after that little girl Ziyun going away by her excuse, there came an extremely handsome and uninvited guest. The person who came was the big boss, Xinyuan Haoyu, who just eaten a little bit of dinner. Heh, Your Majesty King of Jing, why did you come to my room so late at night? Feng Zhiyao felt her head go numb. If he came here, didn't that mean he wouldn't let her meet with Li Minkin in private? Zhiyao, why are you still dressed so coquettishly at night? Where are you going? Xinyuan Haoyu blocked her door and prevented her from leaving. With a wave of his hand, the door got locked. I don't want to go anywhere. The moonlight is beautiful. I was just thinking of going out to admire the moon. Feng Zhiyao saw him suddenly pull out the delicate flute from his waist. Her beautiful face paled, but her heart remained calm. Admiring the moon? Do you need to wear a dress as thin as a cicada's wing? Do you really think I am a fool? Xinyuan Haoyu's jade-like eyes flashed with malice. He discovered that he did not know this woman at all. From the meeting in Begonia Garden of Prime Minister's mansion to now, he had no idea what sort of woman she was. What are you doing with this flute? May I ask your Highness King of Jing, who am I to you? Or who are you to me now? Feng Zhiyao felt that he was not qualified to ask her these questions. She was furious. At this moment, the white-clothed Xinyuan Haoyu was standing at the door. Under the clear moonlight, his phoenix eyes were like two dark pools, a little cold in his black eyes, and a little hot on Feng Zhiyao's beautiful face. WHI chapter was sparkling with bright beads. When Xinyuan Haoyu heard this, for the first time, a strange expression appeared on his beautiful face. His scrutinizing eyes constantly moved on Feng Zhiyao's body. Once, twice, thrice, looking at Feng Zhiyao. You should ask me who I want to be. Xinyuan Haoyu murmured to himself, a trace of tenderness appearing in his eyes, flashing briefly. Lover? Smart as Feng Zhiyao, she naturally agilely caught a trace of gentleness flashing in his eyes. Just a trace was enough. She saw that he was at a loss, so she explained in a soft voice, It's that kind of close relationship with your little Haoyu. A red cloud quietly crept up Xinyuan Haoyu's chapterix. His beautiful face was dyed with traces of enchanting chapter arm. Feng Zhiyao's beautiful eyes couldn't help but widen. Did his blushing face prove that he had feeling of her? Her small hand Arya chaptered out involuntarily and gently two-chaptered his flawless, slightly cold, handsome face. Her delicate, jade-like hands drew all the way to his body, causing his body to tense up and his face to turn red. It made Feng Zhiyao, who hadn't tasted pretty boy for a long time, become excited. What should he do? He was the emperor's 9th son. Would she be in any trouble if she just ate him like that? What should he do? Feng Zhiyao, why is this place blue? Xinyuan Haoyu pointed at the scar on her butterfly collarbone and said in a displeased tone, It's just a small wound. She began to jiggle, not wanting the kiss to spoil the mood. You're not lying to me, are you? Xinyuan Haoyu was from the imperial family. Currently, he also had a few maidservants, concubines, and the like. The only difference was that he was a gentleman. He naturally knew that Feng Jiao was lying. I'm not lying to you. She still wanted to be stubborn and think of a way to escape. But now that handsome man was right in front of her, if she just ran away like that, wouldn't it be a waste? You're still saying that you didn't lie to me? Then here. Could they be all of your so-called small wounds? Xinyuan Haoyu hated being deceived by others the most in his life. At this moment, his pair of phoenix eyes shone with light. He had a strong feeling that he wanted to tear Feng Jiao apart. Yes, Feng Jiao finally made up her mind that she couldn't have anything to do with the Xinyuan family's men, whether it was now or in the future. She hadn't forgotten that the most important thing for the royal family was not beautiful women. Moreover, when the royal family's men were 11 or 12 years old, they already had maidservants to serve them. Although she was lustful, that didn't mean she liked stud man. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come looking for immature male models in the modern world. Xinyuan Haoyu, this is my room. Please leave. Feng Jiao's lips curved up into a cold smile. How dare you? Huh. Now I just know how bold you, Feng Jiao, have become. He picked her up and carried her into the back room. Hey, Xinyuan Haoyu, hurry up and put me down, or else I will beat you. When Feng Jiao saw his pale face, she knew that the situation was bad. Why are you looking at me like that? What are you trying to do? Feng Jiao was put down by Xinyuan Haoyu, but before she could even finish speaking, Xinyuan Haoyu's moist and warm kiss covered her small chapterary lips. Xinyuan Haoyu couldn't control himself. At this moment, he tightly hugged Feng Jiao in his arms, then lowered his head, closed his eyes, and gently but urgently kissed her. His beautiful face was several times enlarged. Feng Jiao felt her mind go blank in an instant. Xinyuan Haoyu's lips lightly two-chaptered Feng Jiao's red lips, and he used the tip of his wet tongue to lick her upper and lower lips. However, Feng Jiao's bright and clear eyes were wide open. Even though Xinyuan Haoyu's kiss was extremely enchanting, the sudden kiss, coupled with the legend of the royal stud man, caused her to struggle with all her might. Seeing the blue kiss mark on her neck, the rage in Xinyuan Haoyu's heart intensified. Right now, her struggle almost burned his rationality. His mind couldn't help but flash with the image on the pornograph. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't help but blush. He really wanted to do the things on the pornograph with her. Scram. When Feng Jiao saw him take a deep breath, she nimbly lifted up her hand and pulled out the white crystal jade hairpin from her hair, mercilessly thrusting it towards his arm. Woman, you've gone crazy. You dare to assassinate me. Xinyuan Haoyu let out a muffled groan, using his other hand to stop the sweet red blood flowing down from his arm. Make one thing clear, if it's not an assassination, it's just a stab. Feng Jiao's expression was cold. Did he think she was scared? The hairpin she had used just punctured a bit of the skin. So what? Why did he making Su Chapter a big fuss about it? You, Feng Jiao, you're vicious. Xinyuan Haoyu felt that he must have gone crazy tonight, so he came to her room to find her. Then why aren't you scram? Feng Jiao gnashed her teeth and said. Normally, she likes to hunt on her own initiative. If her prey counterattacks, then she will lose her interest to hunt. Although she admitted that she had feeling of Xinyuan Haoyu, in the instant he forcefully kissed her just now, it's all gone. Before I leave, help me deal with my injuries. Xinyuan Haoyu controlled his urge to have her, thinking to himself, as a prince, did he need to force her? Shaking his head, he pulled up his sleeve and showed her the cut on his arm. Do you need me to help you with Su Chapter a small injury? The corner of Feng Jiao's mouth twitch-chaptered when she heard this, and she rolled her eyes at him. Do you want me to let his father know that his son was stabbed by you after I returned to the capital? Huh. Xinyuan Haoyu's face turned cold. All right. I am in bad luck. Feng Jiao put away the white jade hairpin, tore off a corner of her skirt, and gave him a brief treatment. Are you really Prime Minister Feng's first daughter? Look me in the eye and answer me. Suddenly, Xinyuan Haoyu tightly held onto her arm. His eyes stared into the depths of her eyes. The occasional ripple was a huge wave that was dozens of feet high, capable of sweeping away all souls. Feng Zhiao only felt that every time she met Xinyuan Haoyu's gaze, her heart would always have a slight ripple. It was neither because of nervousness or fear. She felt it chaptery. However, it was not something that could be too chaptered. It was a feeling that would drive anyone mad. In a daze, something floated in front of her eyes. Turning around, she saw Xinyuan Haoyu's hair, his long hair gently fluttering in the wind, showing an indescribable elegance. Her heart started to a chapter. She hated that kind of feeling, but also liked it a little bit. Her heart seemed to beat faster. Oh no, why was he looking at her like that? I'm asking you, who are you? Xinyuan Haoyu raised one eyebrow, slowly chaptering her. Feng Zhiao, the first daughter of Prime Minister Feng. Feng Zhiao's eyes flashed. She thought to herself, she almost told him she was Meishi. Luckily, her anti-hypnosis T chapternique was first class when she was a night demon. No, you're not Feng Zhiao. Feng Zhiao has always been elegant and proud. Otherwise, my seventh brother wouldn't have taken a fancy to Feng Ziqiang. You two sisters are the extremes of fire and water. Xinyuan Haoyu saw that the wound on his arm was taken care of by her, so he walked over to the table and personally poured himself a cup of tea. Feng Zhiao thought to herself, this Xinyuan Haoyu really thinks he's the master of this room. But that's fine. If he asks her to pour him a cup of tea, she will definitely refuse. Feng Zhiao, why is the tea in your room so sweet? The tea in my room is bitter than yours. Weird. Xinyuan Haoyu only lightly tasted a few mouthfuls of tea before feeling that this tea had a strange taste. What's so strange about it? You are the emperor's ninth son, the king of Jing. The hotel will naturally provide you with the best tea. What is given to me is naturally the lowest grade of tea, perhaps even tea foam. When Feng Zhiao thought about the strict level of the feudal society, she couldn't help but retort. I only talk about the tea, but you went on and on about it. I submit to you. Xinyuan Haoyu shook his head, feeling the figure of Feng Zhiao in front of him becoming a bit blurry. Feng Zhiao, what did you put in the tea? My head is so dizzy. My body is so hot. Xinyuan Haoyu only felt that his entire body was warm. Only by smelling the cold fragrance of Feng Zhiao could he feel Mu chapter more comfortable. TSK, you saw it too. I was already preparing to leave earlier, so how could I ask someone to chapter arrange the tea? Besides, you were the one who poured the tea. If there's anything wrong with it, it has nothing to do with me. She couldn't be blamed for being heartless. She was just too lazy to deal with the situation. Darn it. Why did I have Su chapter a reaction? Xinyuan Haoyu had always been a virtuous person, but this was the first time Su chapter a situation occurred, and his eyes couldn't help but turn red with anxiety. Your Highness King of Jing, should I ask Mizankin to look for the doctors for you in this town? It would be bad if you were sick. Your forehead is really hot. When speaking, Feng Zhiao chaptered out her delicate hand to chapter his perfectly white forehead. Feng Zhiao, don't chapter me. Xinyuan Haoyu more or less understood that he had been plotted against by some sort of chapterim, but he couldn't understand why someone would secretly drug Feng Zhiao with Su chapter a powerful aphrodisiac. Thus, he was worried about his earlier forcefully kissing Feng Zhiao, so he hurriedly pushed her hand away. Hey, I want to help. Why are you being so mean to me? Feng Zhiao felt a little wronged in her heart. Quick, go and help me bring all the cold water in this room and pour it on me. If it was too late, you'll suffer. As Xinyuan Haoyu spoke, he crossed his legs and circulated his cultivation, letting out a surge of qi, chaptering his teeth and persisting not letting himself do anything that would make him regret. Although Feng Zhiao didn't know why he said that, but when she saw his bloodshot eyes, she quickly ran to bring a silver basin full of water. Why are you dawdling around? Wet my body. Right now, he only knew that his body felt as if it was on fire. He couldn't hurt her right now, not because he didn't like her, but because he cared too much chapter about her. She was as perfect and weak as his mother. He couldn't hurt her in Su chapter a situation. Feng Zhiyao blinked her beautiful eyes and immediately said, Minkin again? What's so good about him? Go to the brothel to find the girl? You have truly looked down on me. I am virgin. Looking for a girl from the brothel. It would be my loss. Xinyuan Haoyu was already too lazy to waste words with her. He fiercely threw himself at her, tearing her clothes apart. Feng Zhiyao's blood immediately boiled after he described the word virgin. So he was pure, so she didn't need to hesitate anymore. Besides, right now, she was saving his pain and his life. Being the first wife or not was not important right now. La la la, the wonderful journey began. The instant their bodies connected, he screamed in his heart. He wanted her. He wanted her. He wanted her. Her love skills made him feel a mysterious desire to die, as if he had ascended into the clouds. Her body, her enchanting fragrance, her chapter arm, everything about her, made him feel more comfortable than he had ever felt before. Wanting one more time wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Night. Suddenly, torrential downpour came with big wind. Li Minkin looked out the window at the rain and thought to himself, perhaps she wouldn't come tonight. Young Master Li, something bad. Young Master Li, something bad. The guard too, Liang Chapter's voice rang out from outside. What happened? In Su Chapter a panic? What should we do if we disturb King of Jing's rest? Hearing a knock on the door, Li Minkin hurriedly walked to the door and opened it to scold him. After drinking some tea, a few soldiers suddenly felt their lower bodies swell up terrifyingly. They kept yelling that they need girls. What should we do? Tu Liang Chapteru was unlucky enough. He was the one in chapterarge of those soldiers. Are there any brothels nearby? We have to keep this a secret from Xianyang. Li Minkin's eyes flickered as he hurriedly said, Yes, I understand. Then I will take my leave. At the beginning, Tu Liang Chapteru wanted to report to Xinyuan Haoyu, but he thought that if the prince was sleeping at this time, he couldn't disturb him. He happened to see the light on in Li Minkin's room, so he came over. We must report this matter to the king tomorrow. Even though they are just a few soldiers, it's a serious matter. Li Minkin felt that this hotel was a little strange, especially that storekeeper who looked like a wanderer in the martial arts world. He didn't look like the storekeepers of other hotels who were shrewd and astute. Suspicious, very suspicious. After Tu Liang Chapter left, Li Minkin extinguished the candle flame and prepared to sleep. However, after he heard the rumbling thunder, he could no longer sleep. He was very worried about Feng Zhiyao, so he tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. After 2 hours, the drug effect finally passed. Xinyuan Haoyu lowered his eyes to look at the girl in his arms, his eyes filled with satisfaction. Letting out a soft sigh, he took off the brose he longed for. This little girl really a sleeper. Then he would go to sleep with her, the cutie in his arms. Xinyuan Haoyu fell asleep with a satisfied smile on his face, or perhaps it's happiness. Last night, a heavy downpour washed everything on the ground. Early in the morning, rays of sunlight shot through the window and sprinkled across beautiful Baoxian town. With the melodious sound of birds chaptererping, the sun slowly climbed up with golden yellow sunlight into the sky, adding an unparalleled beauty to the already poetic scenery. Li Minkin was unable to fall asleep, so he woke up very early. Fortunately, the soldiers were rescued, otherwise they would have been in danger. Strange, how could the tea provided by the hotel contain aphrodisiac? Did someone do it on purpose? After Li Minkin thought of this, his eyes flashed with a dark light. Sunlight shone through the thin paper window onto the body of the persons on the bed. Last night, Xinyuan Haoyu held the beautiful lady and slept well. This was the first time since the death of his mother that he slept so sweetly and with Su Chapter ease. At this moment, his ink-black hair was somewhat loose, with a few strands hanging down to cover his phoenix eyes, creating a layer of shadow on his face. Under the golden sunlight, his purple clothes had a faint halo. Her white and slender fingers caressed Feng Zhiyao's white face. Whi Chapter was as smooth as white jade. Her burning gaze never left her body. Feng Zhiyao moved his hand away. Eric, don't wake me up, let me sleep for a while. Perhaps she had slept too deeply and had forgotten that she was currently in a different time and space. Eric? Who's Eric? Yaoer, wake up. Who's Eric? Hearing the strange name, Xinyuan Haoyu's heart was filled with curiosity. But who? Eric, that's my pet cat. Oh, who are you? Ah, Xinyuan Haoyu? Yaoer, don't look at me like that. You saved me last night. After I return to Xianyang, I will ask my father to bestow a marriage upon us. I want to marry you as the first wife of King of Jing. It could be considered a man's promise. No, I don't need an imperial edict. Feng Zhiao sat up as the quilt slid down, revealing a large area of her body. Why didn't you need an imperial edict? He looked at her as she sat up, revealing her enchanting beauty. He quickly withdrew the complicated emotions from his phoenix eyes, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. Did she not care that she had given him her first night? Even though he did not see the legendary red mark, that was not important. What was important was that he had her, and that was enough. Feng Zhiao lifted up her long hair. Kiss marks were on her shoulders. Her eyes faintly swept around. Did he not care about that she was not virgin? He actually even asked for an imperial edict to bestow a marriage. You're not my first man. She didn't want to lie to him, also want to take this opportunity to get out of trouble. What did you say? Xinyuan Haoyu thought he heard wrongly, and thus, he asked uncertainly, but why was his heart chaptering a little? Was it because of careness? Feng Zhiao withdrew her gaze, her pretty eyebrows slightly raised, and her clear and intelligent eyes remained calm without any ripples. Lifting his eyelids, he elegantly leaned back on his pillow, slightly turning his head to look at the man beside him. Her gaze clearly fell on Xinyuan Haoyu, but Xinyuan Haoyu didn't feel any attention at all. He felt a little cold, because sadly he could not feel her heart. Last night was not my first night. So, you still want to ask your father for marrying me, as King of Jing's first wife? Feng Zhiao faintly said. Hearing this, Xinyuan Haoyu's heart chaptered painfully. Could what she said be true? No, it must not be true. Didn't she reject him last night? No? The girl he liked was not a slut. You're lying. Xinyuan Haoyu's phoenix eyes were like deep pools, tightly looking into her beautiful eyes as he growled. It's true. You should know the reason why your seventh brother decided to cancel the engagement, right? Remember? Unchapterastity. Xinyuan Haofei said that I'm unchapterastity. Feng Zhiao thought that if the ancient women talked about this matter, they would definitely burst out into tears. So she immediately thought about it for a while, and then her eyes actually started to fill up with tears. That's because seventh brother has problem. I'm not him. I'll treat you well. Yaoer, even if you are unchapterastity, you didn't belong to me before last night. You were my woman now, so I won't give up on you. Xinyuan Haoyu thought about how he had finally fallen in love. How could he give up on her? What? You don't care if I'm unchapterastity? Was their Su chapter a stupid man? Feng Zhiao thought maybe he was stupid, or she had heard wrong. I don't care. I can't participate in your past, but your present and future will all belong to me alone. Xinyuan Haoyu felt that ever since the death of his mother, he had been alone. Now, aside from the throne, she was the only one he cared about. But I'm the woman your seventh brother gave up. If you ask the emperor for an imperial edict, it won't be good for your reputation, right? The royal family cares about reputation the most. Please give up the idea of marrying me. Reputation can be created. My Yaoer is unique, and without exception, I'm going to have Yaoer's heart for sure. Xinyuan Haoyu's confession was truly unique to her. Feng Zhiao's mouth twitch-chaptered upon hearing it. She was finished. She had really gotten herself into trouble with the royal family. I don't have a heart. Feng Zhiao rolled her eyes at him. She didn't even know where her heart was. Yaoer. Xinyuan Haoyu frowned. Xinyuan Haoyu, it's just a romantic affair? You want me to take responsibility? Feng Zhiao raised her eyebrows as she mockingly looked at Xinyuan Haoyu with an ice-cold gaze. She actually said that it was just a romantic affair, but she was indeed half right. The other half was his sincerity towards her. How could she so mercilessly kill it? Was he nothing in her heart, not even comparable to a pet? She actually called out its name in sleep. Xinyuan Haoyu felt an unprecedented stab of pain in his heart, but in the next instant, his smile became magnificent. Turning his body, he hugged her, caressing her face with his white and slender fingers, before slowly placing broken kisses on her face one after another. How could she be so calm? Let him kiss? Feeling his strong, manly aura, her brows slightly raised, her eyes like silk. What, do you want to do it again this early in the morning? Hearing her words, Xinyuan Haoyu's subordinate paused for a moment before pressing his lips against her ear and laughing softly. Yaoer, you have been my woman for one day, then you will always be mine. The smile on his face deepened. And then what? You swear you will never take a concubine? Seeing his determined expression, Feng Zhiyao could only laugh. Chapter 63 Love Mark, Xinyuan Hao Chapter in Part 1, Never Have a Concubine? As a member of the royal family, how is that possible? But after having concubines, I won't two-chapter them. I can guarantee you that, and I will do it. Yaoer, believe me. His long, shiny fingers danced a waltz on her smooth, jade-like shoulders, and his fingertips felt her skin as tender as a baby's. His eyes flashed with a deep and serene light, and looking at the kiss marks on her body, he happily smiled. These were the marks of love that he had left to her last night. What do you want to do about has nothing to do with me? Feng Zhiyao got up absent-mindedly, wanting to put on her clothes and quickly eat the contraceptive pill. Fortunately, she had some. She sighed in her heart. She actually used it after having sex with Xinyuan Haoyu. However, she was not responsible for this. Isn't it just a one-night stand? As for what Xinyuan Haoyu was thinking, that was his personal matter. It had nothing to do with her. A complicated look flashed across Xinyuan Haoyu's eyes. Even if he wanted to take responsibility for her, she didn't need it. What are you doing there? I'm hungry. After speaking, Feng Zhiyao quickly jumped off the bed and neatly put on her clothes. Just when Feng Zhiyao took out the pill bottle and was about to pull out the stopper, Xinyuan Haoyu suddenly felt an ominous foreboding. What do you want to eat? Xinyuan Haoyu suddenly realized that something was wrong. He rushed forward to snatch after the white jade bottle from her hand. Contraceptive pill. I will not bear a royal heir. So, I have to eat this pill in order to ensure it. So, give that bottle back to me. Feng Zhiyao's cold voice sounded in the silent room. You. What's wrong with having my baby? I will not allow you to take this pill. No matter how gentle a man was, at this moment, he was unable to calm down. With a strong grasp, the white jade bottle and the pill in his hand instantly turned into white powder, flying in the air and falling to the ground with a rustling sound. Seeing his actions, Feng Zhiyao's lips curved up into a faint smile. You destroyed this bottle. So what? I have ways of not getting pregnant. You should know the famous snow epiphyllum planted in our Prime Minister's mansion. One petal, sterile for life. His smile gradually turned cold, making people unable to feel any happiness. They could only felt as if they were in the dead of winter. Why? Xinyuan Haoyu felt the bone-piercing pain he felt when his mother's died. Now, after experiencing it once more, he could even feel his heart bleeding. This was the first time that he actually fell in love with a girl, but she cared so little about his responsibility, his heart. Even though his heart was bleeding from the pain, his face still maintained a graceful smile. He was unwilling to hit her. Why did she say all this to break his happy thoughts? There's no why. If I really want to make you give up, then I will answer you. I don't believe in true love. After all, to her, sex first, then love. He should be well aware of this. Even your baby, you can't have it? He looked at her expectantly, hoping she would shake her head. That's impossible. The baby shouldn't been born into this world. Feng Zhiyao raised her eyebrows and said coldly, Feng Zhiyao, you are too heartless. He grabbed her wrist and tried to shake her awake. Whatever you say. You'd better get dressed and come out. I'll go downstairs for food. Feng Zhiyao felt that there was no need for her to pursue this question with Xinyuan Haoyu. Damn it, this was the only bottle of contraceptive pill she had brought with her. Damn it, hope she was lucky. It would be better to go to the medicine store later to buy some for backup. Eldest miss, was that the voice of King of Jing just now? How did he? It could be a hallucination, right? Ziyun remembered that she was a servant girl, and he couldn't ask Tumu Chapter about this master. Thus, she subconsciously shut her mouth. Ignore him. Let's go downstairs to eat first. At this moment, Feng Jiao was glad that Ziyun slept in the next room. That girl had always slept well. She must have heard nothing about what happened last night. But Ziyun hesitated. She wanted to say something, but stopped. No, but let's go downstairs for breakfast. Feng Jiao finally suppressed Ziyun's curiosity with roar and coercion. Xinyuan Haoyu looked at Feng Jiao's cold-back figure. She emotionlessly closed the door. He felt his heart rend chapter in pain, cold tears flowing down his face. Feng Jiao's words just now were like a sharp sword stabbing into his chapterist, riddling him with wounds. Feng Jiao, since you are already my woman, then you can only bear my chapterild. When we return to Xianyang, at the Blue Festival, you and I will get married. Xinyuan Haoyu remained silent for a while, clenchaptering his teeth and quickly leaving this room. There was a voice supporting him in his heart. Do not give up. He knew that he was not an easily tempted man. Now that his heart had been moved, he could not bear to let her take over. From then on, he would be the ruler of her life. Within the room on the second floor of Feng Yun Hotel, Minkan, I'm sorry for last night. I was too tired and fell asleep. Feng Jiao had to lie to Li Minkan. Then, did you sleep well? Li Minkan looked at Feng Jiao with suspicion as she suddenly chapter-arranged into a dress with lotus petals. He felt it was strange, but couldn't ask in detail. I was talking about the lightning and the rain. Did you sleep well? Li Minkan cleared his throat and added, I slept well. How about you? Feng Jiao lowered her eyes, not daring to look him in the eye. After all, she was the one who broke the promise first. Not good. Some soldier's tea was added medicine last night. He thought for a moment and decided not to say it in Tumu chapter detail. Why is his face so pale? Feng Jiao was very worried about him. It was strange that their mouths had been moving for a long time, but she heard nothing. You guys eat. In order to investigate this matter, I must return to the Seoul Chapterace Manor first. See you in Xianyang after 7 days. Li Minkan couldn't sit any longer. No wonder Yaoer wore a dress with lotus petals on Su Chapter a hot day. It was all because of last night. He understood everything. He was Li Minkan, so he could only be Li Minkan who could never have any feelings. Hey, what did you say to him? Why did he look at me with Su Chapter pain in his eyes just now? Feng Jiao was not stupid either. She could sensitively tell something from Li Minkan's expression. Pain? Why can't you understand my pain? Xinyuan Haoyu waved towards Ziyun, indicating that she should take her leave first. After a short pause, the faint smile on his face suddenly disappeared and the waves in his eyes surged violently. You told Minkan what happened between you and me last night? Is that so? Feng Jiao didn't question him, but stated it with certainty. How could she forget that the man in front of her was surnamed Xinyuan, the most domineering imperial family? Yes, I just want him to understand that as my rival, he is no match chapter for me. It looks like his move was the right. At the very least, Li Minkan had to go back to Xianyang alone. You answered straightforwardly. Why did you do it? Li Minkan and I don't have anything. You've misunderstood us. Feng Jiao glared at him fiercely. This was great, hateful. This man had angered away her best prey. Then how could she play pretty boys along the way? Forget it. Go to sleep. Chapter 63 Love Mark. Xinyuan Hao Chapter in Part 2 In the dark of the night. An ordinary carriage drove slowly on the wide street. Why are we leaving Suyang so late at night? How could Feng Jiao not be angry? While she was sleeping well, Xinyuan Haoyu woke her up and told her to get into the carriage. Isn't it good to go back to Xianyang earlier? Xinyuan Haoyu lazily leaned, squinting his eyes. His long eyelashes made some shadow, causing his handsome face to flash with dazzling light. A pair of hands as perfect as jade flipped the books. That's good, but aren't you a bit too hurry? Last time, you said that you wanted to enjoy the scenery all the way back. Feng Jiao didn't forget the conversation they had that day going to Bai Ma Temple. Someone wants to kill me. Xinyuan Haoyu specifically raised his head to look at Feng Jiao, hoping to see some worried expression in her eyes. Unfortunately, he didn't see anything. So what? The old emperor didn't care about family planning, so his sons would kill each after other for the throne. Yaoer, you're so cold-blooded. Xinyuan Haoyu's brows wrinkled even more. He had expected her to be nervous at least for a moment, but he hadn't seen the expression he wanted to see. She was the golden killer of Night Demon, so she was cold-blooded. Hearing this, she gave a non-committal smile before continuing to sleep with her eyes closed. The following journey was very smooth. Feng Jiao had spent it all in sleeping and eating. Seeing that Feng Jiao didn't really want to talk to him, Xinyuan Haoyu didn't say anything more, but the way he looked at her became even more determined. Far away, the Crown Prince's mansion occupied a huge piece of land. It was luxuriously decorated, with dragons and phoenixes carved. It was filled with countless exotic flowers and plants. The Crown Prince, Xinyuan Haochapteran, lowered his head to look at the naked wife Gu Exioner's alluring body. Whi Chapter was glowing with passion. This was an enchanting body as a man. Of course he would like it, but when he thought of Gu Exioner's goal and actions, he couldn't help but feel angry. What? Why can you not get hard today? Gu Exioner swept away the usually gentle and virtuous expression and instantly chapter-arranged her expression. The arrogance in her eyes was even full of disdain. Gu Exioner, how long are you going to force me? Xinyuan Haochapteran was angry, hysterical. When you become the rightful emperor, then get angry at me. Gu Exioner coldly glared at Xinyuan Haochapteran, not putting him in her eyes at all. Gu Exioner, you. Oh, I feel bad. Oh, Exioner, my good Exioner, give me the 5-stone powder. Give it to me. Xinyuan Haochapteran chapter-arranged from his usually handsome and unrestrained appearance, immediately collapsing on the bed in pain. Perhaps it was because the range of his movements, his tall and thin body fell and rolled on the ground, letting out a painful cry. You haven't served me well yet. How can I give it to you? Gu Exioner walked towards him unblemished, but then she chaptered down and sneered. I beg you, my good Exioner, hurry up and give me the 5-stone powder. I feel so bad right now, so bad. At the same time, Xinyuan Haochapteran wanted to resist this drug that would make him addicted to it, but he painfully tried to take it. At this moment, he hated himself for his uselessness, hated his credulity, and hated his helplessness. Oh, then let me think. How will you serve me then I could be happy? Gu Exioner's beautiful eyes flashed with a sinister light. Exioner, 5-stone powder, please give it to me. Xinyuan Haochapteran was still kneeling on the ground, kowtowing in front of her. Gu Exioner looked at Xinyuan Haochapteran and smiled complacently. Of course she was happy. His Highness the Crown Prince, who was usually extremely noble in front of others, had actually knelt to her. Gu Exioner. How could she not be happy? You want the 5-stone powder? Gu Exioner slowly rose to her feet. Her movements were graceful, but in Xinyuan Haochapteran's eyes, they were filled with hatred towards this sort of elegance. She was clearly the adopted daughter of Internal Affairs Minister Gu Zhendong. However, her body was imperceptibly exuding the domineering aura of Imperial clan. This made him hate her to death, but he had no choice but to rely on her Gu family's influence. After all, his mother was dead, and his uncle, the Ngui Duke, had returned to his hometown. Even though his father deeply loved his mother, it would be quite troublesome for him to successfully inherit the throne. No matter if it was his 4th or 7th brother or 9th brother, they were all coveting his father's position. Yes, good Exioner, give it to me. Xinyuan Haochapteran nodded with a trembling voice full of anticipation, inwardly resenting himself for not getting rid of this drug addict. Whi Chapter also seemed to be on the verge of becoming more and more serious. Io, my toes are stained with dust. Hurry up and lick them clean for me. Gu Xianer's delicate eyebrows rose and she sat on the bed, extending her jade-white toes and perfectly appearing in front of Xin Yuan Hao Chapterin. Xianer. No. I am the crown prince. How could? Xin Yuan Hao Chapterin was so angry by Gu Xianer's words that he was about to explode. However, he had a request to ask of her right now. Thus, he begged for mercy in a low voice. You are the crown prince, so what? In my eyes, you are nothing but a puppet. Gu Xianer didn't listen to him at all. A puppet? Xin Yuan Hao Chapterin laughed loudly, full of tears and mucus. In the end, he was still addicted to it. He couldn't hold on any longer, so he slowly crawled towards Gu Xianer, stuck out his tongue and really licked Gu Xianer's toes. Gu Xianer felt very excited at this moment. She laughed out loud. So what if he was the crown prince? For the sake of the 5-stone powder, he, Xin Yuan Hao Chapterin, chapteriply knelt down and licked her toes. Gu Xianer didn't see Xin Yuan Hao Chapterin lower his eyes, and a hint of endurance flashed through his eyes. Very comfortable. Here, there's only one today. Swallow it. Hurry and come up. Gu Xianer finally nodded in satisfaction. She'd taken out a red pill and handed it to the shivering Xin Yuan Hao Chapterin. After Xin Yuan Hao Chapterin swallowed that red pill, the effects quickly removed the discomfort on his body, giving him a lively look. Xianer, I recovered. At this moment, his little Hao Chapterin was being controlled by the red pill. If he didn't release his burning lust at this moment, then he would be in even greater pain and suffering later on. Yes. Gu Xianer had long since laid down on the bed, still naked. On the bed covered in a golden blanket, Xin Yuan Hao Chapterin was like a ferocious beast, doing Gu Xianer times until the effects of the pill faded away. After the last round, he slowly stood up, grabbed a white clothes from the ground and put it on. Then, he leaned against the resting chapterer. His black hair scattered about and his snow-white collar was half open. Why don't you sleep here? Gu Xianer thought that he would sleep beside her tiredly. Just now, I received a letter from Su Yang saying that their mission to assassinate ninth brother failed. Do you think I can sleep tonight? After recovering his strength, he was once again the high and mighty crown prince, Xin Yuan Hao Chapterin. Gu Xianer snorted disdainfully. He really thought that he was above everyone but the emperor. He had so many brothers, he might not even know how would he die in the future. Before her father chapterived his goal, she still had to let him ascend to the throne. You have to sleep even if you can't. Tomorrow, we will go and pay our respects to royal father. After Gu Xianer finished speaking, she covered herself with the quilt and went to sleep. Don't sleep yet. It'll be the Blue Festival in a few days. Does your father not have any words? Xin Yuan Hao Chapterin recalled that Gu Zhendong seemed to have said that he wanted to make his own daughter, Gu Layer, to be his concubine. So he asked, what can he say? Could it be that you've taken a fancy to my little sister Layer? Gu Xianer suddenly removed the quilt and looked up at his elegant face. Other than you, who else can I fancy? The other women are just putting on a show. Xin Yuan Hao Chapterin smiled, but his smile didn't chapter his eyes. On the day he and Gu Xianer got married, he already knew that she was not virgin. What the hell did he like about her? He just worried about her Gu family's influence in the imperial court. He was truly cowardly. Ever since he and Gu Xianer got married, he didn't dare to go to the concubine's place to sleep. Occasionally, he could only find a pretty palace maid while greeting his father. It's good that you know. Gu Xianer laughed arrogantly, flipped over and slept. Seeing that Gu Xianer's breathing became calm, Xin Yuan Hao Chapterin put on his yellow embroidered robe and walked towards his own bedroom, the Morning Light Palace, with his hands behind his back. He had been back from Suyang for 2 days. In the begonia garden, Feng Jiao was lying on the bed with her eyes closed, resting. The warm morning sun shone on her fair and beautiful face, spreading a faint halo of light. Pink begonia petals drifted down with the wind, rippling on her inky black hair, encircling and fragrant, making people's hearts feel refreshed. Miss, the third miss is asking for a meeting outside the door. Ziyun stepped forward slightly to report. No. Tell her to scram as far as she can. Feng Jiao remembered what Feng Jiqiang did, and her impression of these concubines' daughters of Prime Minister's mansion became even worse. Therefore, she naturally didn't want to meet Feng Jilin. Yes, Mississippi. Ziyun gently flicked his sleeves and walked out with a smile. After time of burning half an incense stick, Ziyun returned. She said, "Third Miss didn't lose her temper. She left obediently. She's smarter than Feng Jiqiang." Feng Jiao suddenly opened her eyes and gently smiled. Ziyun nodded. Third Miss indeed seemed to be a little more shrewd than Second Miss Feng Jiqiang. Ziyun, I'm going to the Juyin Temple to pray today. You don't have to stay with me anymore. I'll give you 1-day break. Feng Jiao raised her eyebrows and smiled. Eldest Miss, what do you mean by break? Ziyun was confused when she heard Su chapter a strange word. Thus, she asked with a baffled expression. I'm just letting you rest for a day. Do you understand? Feng Jiao remembered that she was still in the ancient times, so she quickly explained it to Ziyun with a smile. Understood. Ziyun smiled and nodded. So that was what the word break meant. Feng Jiao turned around and went inside the room to chapter range into a long white dress. It was a long yet powerful brand chapter that was embroidered on the cloth with sandalwood silk, and on it were bright red plum blossoms. From the hem of the dress to her waist, a wide dark purple belt outlined her slim figure. It also gave people a sense of elegance. She wore a slightly pale blue dress, and her every move revealed the beauty and chapter arm. Feng Jiao's lily-white fingers were twirling a piece of lip color. She elegantly placed it in front of her red lips and gently pursed it. Immediately, her red lips became tender and bright, dazzling. Eldest Miss is so beautiful. Ziyun couldn't help but praise her. Is that so? Hee. Feng Jiao smiled. She was as beautiful as the blossoming of thousands of pear flowers. An hour later, an ordinary carriage drove out from the Prime Minister's mansion. It was the lowest grade carriage, covered by a blue curtain. However, the owner of the carriage was extremely happy. The reason why she dressed up so beautifully to go to Juyin Temple was for a person, a man who lived in Juyin Temple. Li Jin ran. Eldest Miss, this is preserves from Zhangsheng store here. Wang Sanzi, the Soa chapterman, did not know why the noble young miss wanted him to buy the preserves, but since the young lady had given him the silver, he had to do it. All right, you don't need to do anything now. Wait for me at the foot of the mountain. I'll go down in 4 hours. Feng Jiao gracefully got off the carriage while taking a bag of preserves from Wan Sanzi's hands. Yes, miss. Wan Sanzi did not expect the young miss to be so amiable and smiling at him like a spring breeze. Give me the preserves. Thank you. Take the excess silver. I heard that you are a fealty son. Consider this as a reward from the me. After Feng Jiao finished speaking, she turned around and walked up the mountain. Looking at Su chapter, a kind and lovely young lady, a trace of warmth flowed through Wan Sanzi's heart. Su chapter, a gentle young lady. Why doesn't that bastard king of Qi want her? In the past few days, his mother had fallen ill and was in need of money to get a doctor. Feng Jiao's smile became wider as she walked, smelling the fragrance of the pear blossom. Today, because it was not the 1st or 15th day of a month, there were very few people came to Juyin Temple. Feng Jiao went to ask a monk who was sweeping leaves. Little young master, does that young master Li Jinran still live here? I don't know. A trace of vigilance flashed across the eyes of the little monk wearing a gray monastic robe. He hurriedly said. Then he slightly clasped his hands together and saluted to Feng Jiao before walking to another place with the broom in hand. Feng Jiao was very depressed because she had asked several monks, and the answers she got were all the same. They were all 3 words. I don't know. All right. Since this group of bald donkeys didn't want to tell her, she decided to finally Jinran by herself. Chapter 64 Su Mayan Got Jealous Part 1 This purple pill. If a woman takes it, her internal energy and beauty will increase. If a man takes this pill, his internal energy will backlash. Even worse, his features will become that of a woman, and his meridians will explode and die. That would be suicidal for me. Tao Jixin quickly explained. Oh, so it's like that. It has the effect of keeping you beautiful. Then I'll eat it. Of course, she hoped that her beauty would attract more pretty men. Otherwise, how could she realize her dream of eating all the pretty men in the world? At the moment when Tao Jixin was stunned, Feng Zhiyao had already taken the purple pill without hesitation and swallowed it. Eldest miss? Noticing that she had eaten it, and her face was filled with pain, Tao Jixin hurriedly shouted out. Feng Zhiyao was sweating profusely. She was in extreme distress. Uncle Xian, is here a place to bathe? Pick a reliable maidservant to serve me. Feng Zhiyao quickly ordered. By the way, Uncle Xian, is there really no problem with the pill? She was a little afraid now, so she asked. No, it's said that there's also a miracle ingredient for purifying the spinal in there. There definitely won't be any problems. Eldest miss, please hold on. Tao Jixin hurriedly retreated and called for a reliable maidservant. The maidservant was thick-browed, large-eyed, and had a muscular back. She looked very sturdy and valiant. Eldest miss, this little girl's name is Zhu. She's strong. So how about letting her carry you to the flower stream pool for a bath? P. Chapter String said quickly and gave Zhu a hint. At this moment, her only thought was to take a bath. Her body was wet, and it was really too uncomfortable. After Zhu received the order, she immediately smiled and said, Eldest miss, this servant has knelt down. Then she bent down and waited for Feng Zhiyao to climb on her back. As expected, this girl was born with great power, so she easily carried her to the flower stream pool. The flower stream pool was located behind the building. It was a huge natural outdoor hot spring in the shape of a fan in front of the moon lake. As the wind blew past, crabapple blossoms began to fall. Some pink or white crabapple blossoms floated down, floating above the steaming hot spring. The white mist rising from the pool water was like immortal smoke. It was so beautiful that it made one feel relaxed and happy. However, Feng Zhiyao didn't have the mood to look at this beautiful scene. She ordered Zhu to turn around. Zhu, no one will come here, right? Eldest miss, please rest assured. This place is secluded, so no one will come here. Besides, I will guard this place wholeheartedly. Zhu answered in a neither haughty nor humble manner. Then she lowered her hands to her sides, her entire body entering a state of vigilance. Thank you, Zhu. Feng Zhiyao thanked with her modern habits, then quickly took off her clothes that were drenched in sweat. Eldest miss, this is something that a servant should do. When Zhu heard this, a warm feeling flashed through her heart, but her face remained indifferent. An hour later, Feng Zhiyao was dumbfounded. She looked at the perspiration that kept oozing out from her body, and it was murky sweat. It caused the entire flower stream pool to chapter-range from crystal clear to gray, causing her to be petrified. Eldest miss, why are you so quiet? Seeing that it had been quite some time since she last heard the sound of the eldest miss's bath, Zhu asked worriedly. Zhu, turn around and help me. When Uncle Xian had called her over to carry her, Zhu had prepared a large moonlight silk yarn in advance, ready to be used at any moment. Eldest miss. As soon as Zhu turned around, she wanted to give Feng Zhiyao the white silk, but stopped the next second. The white silk she held in her hands fell to the ground as well. Her mouth opened several times and became even bigger, before finally saying, Miss, you're so beautiful. But now, Feng Zhiyao's facial features was like being meticulously sculpted. Her skin was delicate and pink like soft water, and her jade-white body was like a porcelain of high quality. She was as beautiful as silk, exuding a kind of exquisite and pure beauty. Amidst the lingering steam, it added a sense of mysteriousness to the flower in the fog, as if it were a hibiscus in water, blended together with a myriad of elegance, making it a magnificent sight to behold. The silky black hair that was like a waterfall with a few slivers of Ms. Chapterreef slid past her round and fragrant shoulders. The moisture was mixed with an infinite amount of sex appeal. She was so beautiful to shook one's soul. Zhu, how did you stutter? Didn't this girl talk fast just now? Eldest miss, I saw you were too beautiful, so, Lvju mumbled as it bit its lower lip. Really? I've become more beautiful? Could it be that that lousy pill really has a face-preserving effect? Feng Zhiyao mumbled to herself. Seeing Lvju nodding, she quickly asked, Lvju, did you see the water turn black? Eldest miss? Why didn't I see it? Isn't the water clear? Lvju looked towards the direction Feng Zhiyao pointed, glanced at it for a few times, then slightly shook his head. Huh, God, how did the water become clean again? Feng Zhiyao couldn't figure out how the water became crystal clear again, but her heart was filled with doubts. All of this proved that this Tsuha house was a bit strange. WA chapter also aroused her interest. Okay, since she was now the owner of this Tsuha house, she wanted to clarify these things. Eldest miss, don't catch chapter a cold. Quickly put it on. Seeing that Feng Zhiyao had ungracefully let out a sneeze, Lvju hurriedly picked up the moonlight silk from the ground that she had just dropped. Feng Zhiyao raised her hand and took it, put it around her body. After Lvju took Feng Zhiyao to the study room of Tao Zhixian, he looked at Feng Zhiyao, who was dressed in this way, and opened his mouth wide in surprise. It's amazing. Eldest miss, you've become so beautiful. Excitement could be seen in his eyes. He could even see another she through Feng Zhiyao. That's right, thank you, Uncle Xian. Can you let Lvju buy me a dress at the clothing store? I can't leave with this after a while, can I? If she did wear it, it would be truly astounding. Tao Zhixian then remembered, Eldest miss, that cabinet is full of the previous owner's dress. If you don't mind, you can put it on first. You can chapter arrange it when Lvju bought back the clothes. Pointing with his finger, Feng Zhiyao took the initiative to open the buckle of an exquisite box inlaid with ruby-colored agate. Inside, there were various clothing sets. Each chapter of WHI chapter was exquisite and elegant, each chapter with its own characteristics. Feng Zhiyao nodded. She was very satisfied with it. Then there's no need for Lvju to buy. The clothes here look very new. I'll wear one first. Anyway, the Prime Minister's begonia garden had a lot of clothes. In this regard, Feng Zhiyao didn't pay too much attention to it. As long as her clothes were beautiful, it was fine. Yes, miss. Tao Zhixian and Lvju both nodded. With the help of Lvju, Feng Zhiyao put on a crimson dress with butterflies and swallows. She walked out of the white jade carving of the hibiscus screen. It's simply tailor-made for eldest miss. Tao Zhixian smiled, a flash of trance between her eyebrows. The eldest young lady really did look like her. Beautiful? Hee. Feng Zhiyao laughed happily. She didn't expect that her clothes had the fragrance of a butterfly or chapter it on them. Tao Zhixian and Lvju both nodded and laughed. Lvju, you can leave first. Tao Zhixian then remembered that eldest miss had taken the purple pill. He had to open her run and do meridians in order to allow eldest miss's inner strength to be fully integrated. After Lvju left, Tao Zhixian said, Eldest miss, do you feel completely comfortable? I feel that my body has become mu chapter lighter. Uncle Xian, the water in the flower stream pool even chapter-ranged color before. It's actually so dark that it's scary. Feng Zhiyao explained to Tao Zhixian what had just happened. Congratulations to eldest miss for your rebirth. After the Ren and Du meridians are opened, eldest miss can start practicing martial arts. Hearing this, Tao Zhixian immediately knelt down happily. He was overjoyed. Uncle Xian, don't kneel to me anymore. I won't get blessed. Feng Zhiyao unhappily rolled her eyes. It's better if you hurry up and open my run and do meridians. If she need to learn, then learn. At least, in the future, she could save some energy when pouncing on a pretty boy. If Tao Zhixian knew what Feng Zhiyao meant by that, he would most likely be angered to death. He worked so hard to help her open up the Ren and Du meridians, but the eldest miss was actually trying to pounce on the pretty boy. Yes, Mississippi. Hearing her words, Tao Zhixian immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, asked Feng Zhiyao to do it too. Feng Zhiyao imagined herself practicing yoga at this moment. She could only endure the pain and still hear the sound of her bones cracking. After wasting half an hour, she run and do meridians were opened. Eldest Mrs. Bones are already extraordinary. You are a rare martial arts genius. Tao Zhixian nodded repeatedly in praise. Those are all kinds of martial arts manuals collected by the previous master. May I ask what kind of martial arts do you want to practice? He added. What kind of martial arts manuals do you have for me? When Feng Zhiyao saw all the traditional Chapteranese chapter actors, she was immediately confused. She thought for a while, and then smiled lightly. There's the King Kong finger, rippling steps, shadow-shifting sword. He spent the time of burning an incense to read through the yellowed ancient books. That, Uncle Xian, can I pick 2 books at random? Feng Zhiyao yawned. She was too tired today, plus, she hadn't eaten Luan chapter yet, so her mood was a little dejected. Of course you can. Tao Zhixian nodded. In the future, these ancient books will all belong to Eldest Mississippi naturally. Eldest Miss could do as your wish. Strange. Why don't you look at the books? Feng Zhiyao was confused. If she was the one guarding so many martial arts manuals, she would have secretly practiced it herself. But why was he so honest? Eldest Miss, I had already taken clear crane powder. If I learn other martial arts, I can only learn moves. When facing an enemy, I will not be able to use any of their abilities. It's a waste. This is why the previous master entrusted this place to me to manage without worry. He narrated the whole story. What? Clear crane powder? It can't be. There are so many secrets in this building. Feng Zhiyao was completely confused. Suddenly, she felt that the command in her arms was very hot. Yes, when my master let me learn that skill, he fed a clear crane powder to me. Thus, I cannot betray the sect and must not learn other martial arts. There was no resentment in his eyes towards his master, but deep sense of nostalgia. It's like that. Oh, then I will first learn light skill. Feng Zhiyao thought about how Yi Weiyang and the others could fly like airplanes, so she was very envious. Naturally, she had to learn light skill first. Eldest Miss, this is the ripple steps, the so-called light skill that Eldest Miss talked about. Tao Zhixian handed ripple steps to Feng Zhiyao. Uncle Xian, why don't you read it to me? Reading these words seemed to be tired, so let him read them. After he had finished reading, Feng Zhiyao actually memorized it without missing a word. Eldest Miss is sure remembers. Tao Zhixian's face was full of admiration. Hee, not at all. Feng Zhiyao giggled happily. From tomorrow, officially practice. What do you think, Eldest Miss? Hearing Feng Zhiyao's stomachapter growl, Tao Zhixian thought to himself, it's too difficult for Eldest Mississippi. It's almost dinner time. All right, I'll go back first. I'll come back tomorrow morning. Feng Zhiyao smiled and agreed. She thought to herself that the driver, Wan Sanzi, must be anxious. Won't you leave after dinner? Tao Zhixian asked, distressed that the eldest young lady was hungry. Thank you, Uncle Xian. It's better to be a little hungry. Keep my slim figure. Feng Zhiyao was more optimistic. However, she had not already chaptered her limit of hunger. The limit was if she could swallow a cow. Eldest Miss is so humorous. Tao Zhixian held his beard and smiled, then switch-chaptered on the Mi-chapteranism and left the luxurious study with Feng Zhiyao. Before bidding farewell, he also handed Feng Zhiyao 2 pieces of osmanthus cake. When Beiteng Ziqian saw that Su Mian's expression had turned slightly cold, he couldn't help but shiver. Feng Zhiyao didn't have the virgin mark? Then who did she give her virginity to? After thinking about this, Su Mian no longer had the interest to quietly sit down and play a game with Beiteng Ziqian. Ever since his cousin Xiong'er became Xinyuan Haofei's concubine, he rarely went to the Prime Minister's mansion. Could it be that, this time, should he go there to see Feng Zhiyao? See or not? Wait, Ziqian just said something about an assassin. Assassin? Mayan, why aren't you saying anything? You have something on your mind? Beiteng Ziqian was curious. Why was it that when Feng Zhiyao had just been mentioned, Su Mian became weird? Ziqian, it's almost dinner time. I should take my leave. I'll ask you to play chapteress with me some other day. Su Mayan smiled as he stood up to take his leave. All right, I'm really sorry about what happened just now. You're in a bad mood because I mentioned that woman's name. Hee hee, Beiteng Ziqian smiled. He did not know why, but when he saw Feng Jiao talking and laughing with the young driver, he felt an indescribable discomfort in his heart. In the end, he attributed it to that woman being nasty, a type he hated. That was why he felt uncomfortable when he saw her. Yes, that must be it. Beiteng Ziqian was trying to convince himself. Su Mayan went downstairs and walked out of the entrance of the Three Flavors Library. He was hesitating whether he should go to the Prime Minister's mansion to meet Feng Jiao. At last, he remembered that Feng Jiao had a girl who cooked delicious food. After thinking about it, he mounted his Mount Snowflake and whipped in the direction of the Prime Minister's mansion. At the Begonia Garden. Eldest Miss, you're back. This servant is worried that you have not eaten outside. The food we just cooked has been heated up a few times already. When Ziyun saw Feng Jiao come back, she was the happiest. After she was done, she realized that Feng Jiao was a little different. Ziyun, I'll eat it now. Quickly bring out all the good food and wine. Feng Jiao was hungry. Naturally, she had to urge for food. Eldest Miss, you chapter-arranged your clothes? Oh, how beautiful your skin is. It's just like how you usually say it's as delicate as a flower petal. It's like a baby's snowy skin or something. Ziyun spoke up in an awkward manner. In the end, that little girl was extremely happy. Hee hee, these clothes are newly bought. Regarding skin issues, that's because I'm good at caring myself. Feng Jiao remembered Uncle Xian's words and smiled embarrassedly. Then she casually gave an excuse and replied. Very quickly, the 4 maidservants brought all 4 dishes and soup that Ziyun had prepared. Eldest Miss, these dishes were made according to the specifications you mentioned. Why don't you try it and see if it suits your taste? Ziyun gave the delicate silver chapsticks to Feng Jiao with a smile. Normally, the dishes you cook are too many and too tasty, so I control myself and don't dare to eat too much chapter. Those days in Suyang, I ate big fish and big meat every day. Look, I got fat. Feng Jiao thought about Su Yang's trip and realized that she had become a little fat. Although these are ordinary dishes, they are very exquisite. I like them very much chapter. Thank you girls, you are truly considerate. Feng Jiao was so moved that her eyes almost filled with tears when she saw the simplest winter melon soup. God, she could finally live a carefree life again. Eldest Miss, the gatekeeper came to report that young master cousin from the mighty heavenly castle wants to see you. Do you want to see him? Chaptrainer, one of the 4 maidservants, heard the knocks on the door. She hurriedly walked to the front courtyard, took a look, and came back to report. No, let him go away. Feng Jiao thought about her past with Feng Jiqiang, and the day he asked her to break her own tendons. She didn't forget that she was a very vengeful person. Eldest Miss, this isn't good. You see that the old master did not blame the second young master for the matter with the second madam. It can be seen that the old master thinks highly of him. Perhaps he has some urgent business to discuss with Eldest Miss at this time? Ziyun thought back to how mighty Heavenly Castle was playing a very important role in the Nanshao Kingdom. He came in this hours, it was really curious, so she boldly went up to persuade her. Then Chaptrainer, why don't you invite him into the guest hall? Feng Jiao looked at Ziyun for a while, then slowly smiled. Okay. At this moment, she was full to the brim with food and wine. If someone came looking for her, then don't blame her for being vicious. Su Mayan stood with his hands behind his back within the elegant guest hall as his heart spun 1,000 times. Only when a faintly discernible fragrance passed through his nose did he turn around and look towards the door. A figure slowly walked over while carrying a light behind her back. Su Mayan couldn't help but hold high breath as he chaptered her walk in. At that instant, it was as though he saw the fairy that was in the wind. Transparent silver silk, crimson-red butterfly dress, a strand of black hair hanging by her ears, only the top of her head was tied with a white crystal jade hairpin with a simple and elegant bun, and her back was also covered by inky black hair. Her face was as exquisite as jade, and she didn't put on any makeup. Her captivating red lips and thick eyelashes accentuated her pair of mesmerizing eyes, making others feel as if they were sucked into a bottomless abyss and couldn't help but sink deeper and deeper into the pit. Su Mayan couldn't help but stare blankly at Feng Zhiyao. This was the first time he felt like he couldn't breathe. He felt that there was a beauty in front of him that had been reborn, an absolute beauty that transcended the mortal world. Young Master Su, why did you come to the garden late at night to meet me? Feng Zhiyao chaptered his eyes fall on her face. Thus, she coughed a few times to remind him before she asked indifferently. Since when did you and I become so unfamiliar, Cousin Zhiyao? When Su Mayan heard Feng Zhiyao call him Young Master Su, a trace of displeasure flashed across his face. If she could chapter happily with a low-level carriage driver, why wasn't she smiling at him at all? You are Feng Zhiqiong's cousin, not mine. I hope you can figure this out. Feng Zhiyao said with a faint smile. Why did he come to her at this time? What exactly do you want to tell me? Please hurry up, my time is of the highest value. Feng Zhiyao said with raised eyebrows. Ziyun stood at the entrance. When she heard her eldest miss speaking so arrogantly, she couldn't help but feel a bit worried for her. Last time, I saw this girl's porridge was very delicious, so, can you give this girl to me so that she can go to our mighty heavenly castle? Seeing that she was asking him, he explained the excuse he had come up with earlier. No, it was Feng Zhiyao and Ziyun who said it together. Hey, young Master Su, if Ziyun goes to the mighty heavenly castle with you, then I'll have to nurture another girl with good cooking skills. To me, that would be a huge loss. Besides, I'm not the only one who decides this matter. You can ask this girl yourself if she's willing to follow you to your mighty heavenly castle. Feng Zhiyao didn't immediately agree. Instead, she glanced at Ziyun who was standing outside and called her in. Ziyun, are you willing to go to the mighty heavenly castle? If you want to go there, I won't stop you. Feng Zhiyao asked with a smile. She didn't want to force anyone, giving her a chapteroise. Reporting to eldest miss, this servant doesn't want to go to mighty heavenly castle. This servant only wishes to stay by eldest miss's side and cook delicacies for eldest miss. Ziyun hurriedly knelt down and refused. Ziyun was secretly surprised. She didn't expect that her good culinary skills would attract the favor of the young lord of the mighty heavenly castle. Fortunately, it was food, otherwise she would be in trouble. Young Master Su, did you hear that? Ziyun doesn't want to go. I didn't mean to stop her. What Feng Zhiyao meant was, my girl doesn't want to go to your house with you. If you have nothing to do, just get the hell out of here. This, Su Mayan didn't expect a little girl to reject him without any hesitation. His face was a bit ugly and his heart couldn't help feeling a little gloomy. Young Master Su, it's late. You should go back. Feng Zhiyao wanted to chapterace him away like a fly. Ziyun, please leave. I have a few important questions to ask your young miss. Is that okay? Su Mayan recalled the turmoil in his mind and gently smiled to tell Ziyun to leave. Chapter 64 Su Mayan got jealous Part 3 Ing Su Chapter A Young Master Su. Ziyun's mind was in a whirl. Heavens, did young Master Su eat any immortal pills today? How could he smile at her? Ziyun, you can leave first. Seeing that Su Mayan had important questions for her, Feng Zhiyao was surprised. What important questions could he have? And he had to avoid Ziyun? Thus, she was curious and instructed Ziyun to leave. Seeing that Ziyun had left, Su Mayan didn't immediately ask her any questions. Therefore, she simply sat on the wooden chapter and waited for him to ask first. Comparing patience, she would not lose. She leisurely held the white jade teacup on the table, lifting the cup lid and gently sniffing the fragrance of the tea leaves. Her brows were relaxed, and the faint fragrance of the tea was very refreshing. Su Mayan looked at her expression without batting an eyelid. From her expression, it could be seen that she loved drinking tea. He could smell it from afar. It was the broken spring silver needles from Mu Feng Mountain. Under her chapter-arming but elegant eyebrows were a pair of deep and clear eyes. A chapter, and every one of her glance was filled with grace and unwittingly assaulted his heart. It was very quiet within the Huist hall. Su Mayan stood with his hands behind his back, quietly looking down at her. He felt his heart palpitate slightly. It was shocking that he was a little flustered and a little disordered. Cousin Ziyao? He was at a loss. Should he ask? The assassin that Beitang Zitong spoke of? How did Cousin Ziyao end up with an assassin? Too outrageous. There was a long silence. The atmosphere was suffocating. Finally, he could no longer hold it in. How can you have an assassin by your side? Where is he? His deep and magnetic voice rang out. His tone was unclear. I don't know what you're talking about. Feng Ziyao looked into his eyes. Her tone was also unclear. A girl who hasn't been married stays with an assassin. Don't you care about your reputation at all? Su Mayan asked with his dark eyes filled with might. Feng Ziyao raised her eyebrows slightly. After taking a glance at him, she sneered. Reputation? Haha, what a joke. At this time, you came to see me. What qualifications do you have to discuss reputation of a girl with me? With a snort, she asked in return. You. On this point, he was the first one to make a mistake. He was silent for a moment. Young Master Su, what other important questions do you want to ask me? Just say it. It was tiring talking to him. Feng Ziyao handed her entire body to this comfortable pear-blossom wooden chapter. She lazily narrowed her eyes and leisurely spoke, as if she was talking about the fragrant tea in her cup. Su Mayan lowered his gaze, concealing his earlier despondency. After adjusting it slightly, he followed her tempo and gracefully sat on the pear-blossom wooden chapter opposite her. Young Master Su, just ask whatever you want to ask. Feng Ziyao didn't want to waste any more time with him. She opened her small mouth and gracefully yawned. Su Mayan hesitated for a while, but in the end, her calm demeanor made him angry. Thus, she quickly stood up and rushed in front of Feng Ziyao. He chaptered out his hand and lifted the sleeve on her elegant left hand. In an instant, a white, flawless, and delicate lotus root appeared. Where's your virgin mark? This was definitely a serious question. Virgin mark. Why did he care? He was at most her cousin, not her man. Why this interrogating tone? Was this supposed to be the symbol of an ancient girl's virginity? Young Master Su, you don't seem to have the qualification to ask about this, right? Feng Ziyao only felt that it was funny. She gently took a sip of the fragrant silver needle tea in the cup, letting it rest on the tip of her tongue for a moment before slowly moving it into her stomach, then coldly speaking. Feng Ziyao gracefully pulled back her arm with a smile. She pulled up her sleeve and stood up leisurely. At this moment, her only thought was to chapterace him away. What he said is actually true. You really don't have virgin mark. After Su Mayan recognized this cruel truth, he staggered for a moment. He didn't know what was wrong with him to care so much about this matter. Hello? Young Master Su? Who was blabbering in front of you? Feng Ziyao really wanted to chapter up that talkative person to death. Who took your virginity? Who is he? You tell me. Su Mayan's handsome face suddenly turned ashen. He stepped forward and grabbed her shoulders as he angrily roared while speaking. Su Mayan, didn't you know that long ago? Why did I get King of Chi's marriage annulment? Are you suffering from amnesia? But you don't seem very old. How could you forget? Feng Ziyao sneered. She looked at him with a few traces of anger in her eyes. Was she a virgin or not? It had nothing to do with him. Anyway, just kept the bad debt on King of Chi. Wasn't that what people thought? No, King of Chi told us honestly when he was at Songha restaurant. He said that you had only taken the Psychapterodelic medicine that night, and you had not lost your virginity. Su Mayan shook his head and told her the whole story about her fake infidelity. What? That dog's hit King of Chi is so vicious in his thoughts. In order to end the engagement, he forced me to die. Forcing the real Feng Ziyao to suicide? Feng Ziyao didn't expect Xinyuan Haofei to be so cruel. Her heart chaptered. She knew that the remnant of real Feng Zhiyao's love for Xinyuan Haofei was probably exacerbated by the pain now. Therefore, she also carried a heavy feeling in her heart. so heavy that she was almost out of breath. At the end of the day, it was all your cousin Xiong'er's fault. Feng Zhiao gestured for him to leave. You've already picked out her tendons, and she won't be able to get pregnant in this life. Can't you let her go? Su Mayan thought about how he found someone to investigate origins of Xiong'er's infertility. What was strange was that Imperial Dr. Lin was silenced, so the line in his hand was severed. Please, it's your little sister Xiong'er. She won't let me go. Don't make me sound so terrible. The more Feng Zhiao thought about it, the angrier she got. This man was simply asking for a beating. Thus, she thought for a moment. It was meaningless for her to go head-to-head with him. Wasn't he fond of Feng Zhiqiang, who was like a little bird in love with a person, gentle and graceful, always crying? Then she didn't mind playing a part and having fun. Thus, she gathered her emotions. Her white jade-like face covered in tears, she refused to let me go. You didn't even know that when I went to Suyang, someone actually wanted my head. If it wasn't for me being lucky, I'm afraid that. God knows it was your sister Qiang. Or not. Woo-woo. She covered her face with hands as she sobbed. Her thin shoulders trembled in tears. Sister Qiong'er will not be so vicious. She has always been very gentle and kind. You can't have misunderstood her, right? Su Mayan quickly denied her words. Feng Zhiao fainted. She had never thought that Su Mayan would be so protective of her little sister. This really made her break out in a cold sweat. Cousin Zhiao, why are you crying? When Su Mayan saw her tearful expression, he couldn't help but feel a heart-wrenching feeling in his heart. It made him slightly frown. You only know how to protect Sister Qiong'er, but you don't believe me. Su Mayan saw quite a lot beauties, but compared to Feng Zhiao in front of him, they were all overshadowed. He couldn't help but be intoxicated by Feng Zhiao's delicate and chapter-arming demeanor. In the future, Sister Qiong'er will be protected by King of Qi. I will protect you. Su Mayan's eyes dimmed as he hugged her. Feng Zhiao was secretly amused. It was already good enough that he didn't blame her. How could she dare to ask him to protect her? She wasn't stupid, but instead of showing it on her face right away, she lay sobbing on his shoulder. As he smelled the fragrance of the woman's body on the tip of his nose, he couldn't help but feel a rush of emotions. He wanted to hug her even more tightly. Cousin Zhiao, what I said is all true. His tone was firm. Really? Looking dazzled, Feng Zhiao looked up and broke away from his embrace, but her tears were still in her eyes. It's true. Also, Cousin Zhiao, don't ever talk to that sort of low-level driver again. It's not good for you. He suddenly thought of the scene he saw earlier and spoke in a gentle tone. What do you mean low-level driver? Feng Zhiao still hadn't adapted to the strict hierarchy of the feudal society. So, she coldly snorted and wiped away the tears on her face. She was fucking tired. The difference between society class, even if your marriage was annulled by King of Qi, you don't have to do this to yourself, right? These words were said with a bit of sincerity. Do you really think I, Feng Zhiao, can't get married? Feng Zhiao was thoroughly angered by his words and said mockingly. Su Mayan looked at her in different expression and frowned. That's not what I mean. His eyes instantly darkened. How could she not understand what he was thinking? It doesn't matter if you mean it or not. I'm tired. See, the door is over there. You can take care of yourself. Feng Zhiao's bright red chapterary lips slightly perked up. Feng Zhiao, you actually chapter-raced me away? I have good intentions. Do you understand? Su Mayan didn't expect that he was so kind, but she actually dared to ask him to leave. I don't need to understand. I only need to rest now. Therefore, young Master Su, please leave. I won't send you off. Feng Zhiao slowly stood up, wanting to leave first. Feng Zhiao, you have guts. He did not know what was wrong with him, or whether he was under a spell of evil, but just because she and the driver were talking and laughing, he did not bother to come to the Prime Minister's mansion in a hurry without dinner, and she did do this to him. It really made him feel lost. You're not bad either. Feng Zhiao immediately retorted coldly when she recalled how he had called her shameless. /n login with C64 Part 1, Chapter 64 Su Mayan got Jealous Part 1. This purple pill, if a woman takes it, her internal energy and beauty will increase. If a man takes this pill, his internal energy will backlash. Even worse, his features will become that of a woman, and his meridians will explode and die. That would be suicidal for me. Tao Jixin quickly explained. Oh, so it's like that. It has the effect of keeping you beautiful. Then I'll eat it. Of course, she hoped that her beauty would attract more pretty men. Otherwise, how could she realize her dream of eating all the pretty men in the world? At the moment when Tao Jixin was stunned, Feng Zhiyao had already taken the purple pill without hesitation and swallowed it. Eldest miss? Noticing that she had eaten it, and her face was filled with pain, Tao Jixin hurriedly shouted out. Feng Zhiyao was sweating profusely. She was in extreme distress. Uncle Xian, is here a place to bathe? Pick a reliable maidservant to serve me. Feng Zhiyao quickly ordered. By the way, Uncle Xian, is there really no problem with the pill? She was a little afraid now, so she asked. No, it's said that there's also a miracle ingredient for purifying the spinal in there. There definitely won't be any problems. Eldest miss, please hold on. Tao Jixin hurriedly retreated and called for a reliable maidservant. The maidservant was thick-browed, large-eyed, and had a muscular back. She looked very sturdy and valiant. Eldest miss, this little girl's name is LV Zhu. She's strong. So how about letting her carry you to the flower stream pool for a bath? P-Chapter String said quickly and gave LV Zhu a hint. N. At this moment, her only thought was to take a bath. Her body was wet, and it was really too uncomfortable. After LV Zhu received the order, she immediately smiled and said, Eldest miss, this servant has knelt down. Then she bent down and waited for Feng Zhiyao to climb on her back. As expected, this girl was born with great power, so she easily carried her to the flower stream pool. The flower stream pool was located behind the building. It was a huge natural outdoor hot spring in the shape of a fan in front of the moon lake. As the wind blew past, crabapple blossoms began to fall. Some pink or white crabapple blossoms floated down, floating above the steaming hot spring. The white mist rising from the pool water was like immortal smoke. It was so beautiful that it made one feel relaxed and happy. However, Feng Zhiyao didn't have the mood to look at this beautiful scene. She ordered LV Zhu to turn around. LV Zhu? No one will come here, right? Eldest miss, please rest assured. This place is secluded, so no one will come here. Besides, I will guard this place wholeheartedly. LV Zhu answered in a neither haughty nor humble manner. Then she lowered her hands to her sides, her entire body entering a state of vigilance. Thank you, LV Zhu. Feng Zhiyao thanked with her modern habits, then quickly took off her clothes that were drenched in sweat. Eldest miss, this is something that a servant should do. When LV Zhu heard this, a warm feeling flashed through her heart, but her face remained indifferent. An hour later, Feng Zhiyao was dumbfounded. She looked at the perspiration that kept oozing out from her body, and it was murky sweat. It caused the entire flower stream pool to chapter-range from crystal clear to gray, causing her to be petrified. Eldest miss, why are you so quiet? Seeing that it had been quite some time since she last heard the sound of the eldest miss's bath, LV Zhu asked worriedly. LV Zhu, turn around and help me. When Uncle Xian had called her over to carry her, LV Zhu had prepared a large moonlight silk yarn in advance, ready to be used at any moment. Eldest miss. As soon as LV Zhu turned around, she wanted to give Feng Zhiyao the white silk, but stopped the next second. The white silk she held in her hands fell to the ground as well. Her mouth opened several times and became even bigger, before finally saying, Miss, you're so beautiful. But now, Feng Zhiyao's facial features was like being meticulously sculpted. Her skin was delicate and pink like soft water, and her jade-white body was like a porcelain of high quality. She was as beautiful as silk, exuding a kind of exquisite and pure beauty. Amidst the lingering steam, it added a sense of mysteriousness to the flower in the fog, as if it were a hibiscus in water, blended together with a myriad of elegance. making it a magnificent sight to behold. The silky black hair that was like a waterfall with a few slivers of Ms. Chapterreef slid past her round and fragrant shoulders. The moisture was mixed with an infinite amount of sex appeal. She was so beautiful to shook one's soul. Elviju, Elviju, how did you stutter? Didn't this girl talk fast just now? Eldest miss, I saw you were too beautiful, so. Elviju mumbled as it bit its lower lip. Really? I've become more beautiful? Could it be that that lousy pill really has a face-preserving effect? Feng Jiao mumbled to herself. Seeing Elviju nodding, she quickly asked, Elviju, did you see the water turn black? Eldest miss? Why didn't I see it? Isn't the water clear? Elviju looked towards the direction Feng Jiao pointed, glanced at it for a few times, then slightly shook his head. Huh, God, how did the water become clean again? Feng Jiao couldn't figure out how the water became crystal clear again, but her heart was filled with doubts. All of this proved that this Tsuha house was a bit strange. WA chapter also aroused her interest. Okay, since she was now the owner of this Tsuha house, she wanted to clarify these things. Eldest miss, don't catch chapter a cold. Quickly put it on. Seeing that Feng Jiao had ungracefully let out a sneeze, Elviju hurriedly picked up the moonlight silk from the ground that she had just dropped. Feng Jiao raised her hand and took it, put it around her body. After Elviju took Feng Jiao to the study room of Tao Jixian, he looked at Feng Jiao, who was dressed in this way, and opened his mouth wide in surprise. It's amazing. Eldest miss, you've become so beautiful. Excitement could be seen in his eyes. He could even see another she through Feng Jiao. That's right, thank you, Uncle Xian. Can you let Elviju buy me a dress at the clothing store? I can't leave with this after a while, can I? If she did wear it, it would be truly astounding. Tao Jixian then remembered, Eldest miss, that cabinet is full of the previous owner's dress. If you don't mind, you can put it on first. You can chapter arrange it when Elviju bought back the clothes. Pointing with his finger, Feng Jiao took the initiative to open the buckle of an exquisite box inlaid with ruby-colored agate. Inside, there were various clothing sets. Each chapter of WHI chapter was exquisite and elegant, each chapter with its own characteristics. Feng Jiao nodded. She was very satisfied with it. Then there's no need for Elviju to buy. The clothes here look very new. I'll wear one first. Anyway, the Prime Minister's begonia garden had a lot of clothes. In this regard, Feng Jiao didn't pay too much chapter attention to it. As long as her clothes were beautiful, it was fine. Yes, miss. Tao Jixian and Elviju both nodded. With the help of Elviju, Feng Jiao put on a crimson dress with butterflies and swallows. She walked out of the white jade carving of the hibiscus screen. It's simply tailor-made for eldest miss. Tao Jixian smiled, a flash of trance between her eyebrows. The eldest young lady really did look like her. Beautiful? Hee. Feng Jiao laughed happily. She didn't expect that her clothes had the fragrance of a butterfly or chaptered on them. Tao Jixian and Elviju both nodded and laughed. Elviju, you can leave first. Tao Jixian then remembered that eldest miss had taken the purple pill. He had to open her run and do meridians in order to allow eldest Miss's inner strength to be fully integrated. After Elviju left, Tao Jixian said, Eldest miss, do you feel completely comfortable? I feel that my body has become mu chapter lighter. Uncle Xian, the water in the flower stream pool even chapter-ranged color before. It's actually so dark that it's scary. Feng Jiao explained to Tao Jixian what had just happened. Congratulations to eldest miss for your rebirth. After the Ren and Du meridians are opened, eldest miss can start practicing martial arts. Hearing this, Tao Jixian immediately knelt down happily. He was overjoyed. Uncle Xian, don't kneel to me anymore. I won't get blessed. Feng Jiao unhappily rolled her eyes. It's better if you hurry up and open my run and do meridians. If she need to learn, then learn. At least in the future, she could save some energy when pouncing on a pretty boy. If Tao Jixian knew what Feng Jiao meant by that, he would most likely be angered to death. He worked so hard to help her open up the Ren and Du meridians, but the eldest miss was actually trying to pounce on the pretty boy. Yes, Mississippi. Hearing her words, Tao Jixian immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, asked Feng Zhiyao to do it too. Feng Zhiyao imagined herself practicing yoga at this moment. She could only endure the pain and still hear the sound of her bones cracking. After wasting half an hour, she run and do meridians were opened. Eldest Mrs. Bones are already extraordinary. You are a rare martial arts genius. Tao Jixian nodded repeatedly in praise. Those are all kinds of martial arts manuals collected by the previous master. May I ask what kind of martial arts do you want to practice? He added. What kind of martial arts manuals do you have for me? When Feng Zhiyao saw all the traditional Chapteranese chapter actors, she was immediately confused. She thought for a while, and then smiled lightly. There's the King Kong finger, rippling steps, shadow-shifting sword. He spent the time of burning an incense to read through the yellowed ancient books. That, Uncle Xian, can I pick 2 books at random? Feng Zhiyao yawned. She was too tired today, plus, she hadn't eaten Luan chapter yet, so her mood was a little dejected. Of course you can. Tao Jixian nodded. In the future, these ancient books will all belong to eldest Mississippi. Naturally, eldest Miss could do as your wish. Strange. Why don't you look at the books? Feng Zhiyao was confused. If she was the one guarding so many martial arts manuals, she would have secretly practiced it herself. But why was he so honest? Eldest Miss, I had already taken clear crane powder. If I learn other martial arts, I can only learn moves. When facing an enemy, I will not be able to use any of their abilities. It's a waste. This is why the previous master entrusted this place to me to manage without worry. He narrated the whole story. What? Clear crane powder? It can't be. There are so many secrets in this building. Feng Zhiyao was completely confused. Suddenly, she felt that the command in her arms was very hot. Yes, when my master let me learn that skill, he fed a clear crane powder to me. Thus, I cannot betray the sect and must not learn other martial arts. There was no resentment in his eyes towards his master, but deep sense of nostalgia. It's like that. Oh, then I will first learn light skill. Feng Zhiyao thought about how Yi Weiyang and the others could fly like airplanes, so she was very envious. Naturally, she had to learn light skill first. Eldest Miss, this is the ripple steps, the so-called light skill that Eldest Miss talked about. Tao Jixian handed ripple steps to Feng Zhiyao. Uncle Xian, why don't you read it to me? Reading these words seemed to be tired, so let him read them. After he had finished reading, Feng Zhiyao actually memorized it without missing a word. Eldest Miss is sure remembers. Tao Jixian's face was full of admiration. Hee, not at all. Feng Zhiyao giggled happily. From tomorrow, officially practice. What do you think, Eldest Miss? Hearing Feng Zhiyao's stomachapter growl, Tao Jixian thought to himself, it's too difficult for eldest Mississippi. It's almost dinner time. All right, I'll go back first. I'll come back tomorrow morning. Feng Zhiyao smiled and agreed. She thought to herself that the driver, Wan Sanzi, must be anxious. Won't you leave after dinner? Tao Jixian asked, distressed that the eldest young lady was hungry. Thank you, Uncle Xian. It's better to be a little hungry. Keep my slim figure. Feng Zhiyao was more optimistic. However, she had not already chaptered her limit of hunger. The limit was if she could swallow a cow. Eldest Miss is so humorous. Tao Jixian held his beard and smiled, then switch-chaptered on the Mi-chapteranism and left the luxurious study with Feng Zhiyao. Before bidding farewell, he also handed Feng Zhiyao 2 pieces of osmanthus cake. Also, Yaoer wants to stay at home to play for a few more years. You can't throw me out. She had already decided that freedom was more important than anything. Seeing how Father Feng had already handed the Tsuha house over to her, it seemed that she still held a very important position in his heart. You are my good daughter. How could I bear to chapter race you out? Looking at his devastatingly beautiful daughter, Feng Wucai's thoughts flew far away, as if he was looking at another girl through Feng Jiao. Finally, he let out a long sigh. Whi chapter could be counted as a promise. Dad, my business in Suyang is doing very well. It's quite profitable. Feng Jiao indirectly told him that she was a very capable daughter. Yaoer, father knows that you are capable. Right, on the day of Blue Festival, do you want to go? Feng Wucai raised his head and looked at her with a smile. Dad, it is rumored that I am suffering from a vicious disease. Therefore, it's best if I don't go. You can let little sister Jeline participate. She couldn't do two things at the same time. Uncle Xian had said that he wanted her to attend the annual Blue Festival as the master of Tsuha House. Sai, look at my memory. How about this? You take care of things of Tsuha House. No matter what decision you make, I will support you. Feng Wucai looked at the lotus painting hanging on the wall, and a trace of tenderness flashed across his eyes. Dyer, your daughter had grown up. Father, I will be participating as the master of the Tsuha House. Do you think it's possible? Feng Jiao gently smiled, her smile as elegant as an chapterid, her eyes as warm as the spring breeze. That's good. Feng Wucai nodded happily. Father, I'll be going to Tsuha House now. Feng Jiao remembered that she had promised Li Jinran that she would treat him for his leg disease, and she also wanted to practice martial arts. She thought that from today onwards, she would definitely be very busy. She didn't know how Li Minqian was doing. Ever since he left Bao Xi in town, she had never seen him again. This time, she had unexpectedly missed him a little, but she missed Yi Weiyang even more. Did he find the clue of his mother? Go. Don't come back too late. Do you want father to send you a few guards? Feng Wucai remembered that Feng Jiao was always being outside. It's not appropriate. Thus, he asked with concern. Dad, there's no need. I can deal with it myself. Feng Jiao thought that it would be more convenient for her to come and go alone. More importantly, it would be more convenient for her to hunt the pretty boys. Yaoer, have you opened up your 2 meridians? You seem to be mood chapter more relaxed when you walk around. When Feng Wucai looked at her closely, he could already see some clues. Yes, father. Uncle Xian helped me open the run and do meridians. Feng Jiao told the truth. Yaoer, this is good. You are not the same as before, moreover. There will be a day when things will chapter range. You have martial arts to protect yourself, so your father can rest assured. Sai, it will always be beneficial for you to listen to Uncle Xian. Feng Wucai recalled the increasingly fierce battle between the parties in the imperial court today. It was likely that the sky would soon chapter range. The emperor was old. The crown prince was lustful. Only the king of Qin, king of Qi, and king of Jing could be mat-chaptered. But now, it seemed that he didn't know Whi chapter side to chapterus. Dad, who are you supporting? Feng Jiao whispered in Feng Wucai's ear with low voice. Yaoer, it's very difficult for me. Feng Wucai was currently considering the situation, so he would not spout nonsense. Oh, Feng Jiao was speech-chapterless. Father Feng, who was as shrewd as an old fox, could actually say difficult. She had to stop asking. Father, if there's nothing else, I'll go to the Tsuha house to find Uncle Xian now. Seeing his tired face, Feng Jiao wanted to leave. Feng Wucai smiled and nodded, then waved his hand at her to indicate that she could take her leave. Just as Feng Jiao was about to leave, she bumped into someone she didn't want to see. This person was the king of Jing, Xinyuan Haoyu. You came to find my father, right? Feng Jiao used these words to send him away with a faint smile on her face, but the smile hadn't chaptered her eyes yet. I came for you. After getting off his horse, Xinyuan Haoyu rapidly walked in front of her, his left hand firmly grasping her wrist as he spoke. When Feng Jiao heard this, the corner of her mouth twitch-chaptered. What did he mean by coming for her? He was so hypocritically. Then she tilted her head and smiled at him. Don't praise me so highly. I can't bear your kindness. All right, I have some business to attend to, so please do as you please. He did want to go in or not. It had nothing to do with her. The naked him was more adorable. After all, he was still a pretty boy. Your Highness, King of Jing, bye-bye. Feng Zhiao inadvertently revealed the modern farewell message, causing Xin Yuan Haoyu to feel completely confused. In a split second, his expression returned to normal as an elegant smile appeared on his lips. Yaoer, after that day we came back, I haven't seen you for 2 days. I miss you. But I don't miss you. Feng Zhiao didn't say anything else. At the same time, the driver, Wan Sanzi, drove the carriage out from the door of Prime Minister's mansion. She waved at Xinyuan Haoyu and said, I won't talk to you anymore. I'm going out to take care of my business. After saying this, Feng Zhiao got into the carriage without looking back. However, Xinyuan Haoyu jumped onto her carriage even faster than she did, his gaze lazily landing on Feng Zhiao's face. Feng Zhiao really wanted to push him away, but she only felt a dangerous aura pressing down on her. Her eyes fell on his slender fingers, not daring to look at his face. But she could clearly feel the fiery gaze from his eyes. Her heart pounded violently, as if she was worried or nervous. Her delicate forehead was covered with a layer of beads of sweat. What? Scared of me? The corners of Xinyuan Haoyu's lips curled up, revealing a faintly discernible smile. Feng Zhiao smiled embarrassedly, then ignored him, thinking about how to get rid of him later. If you're not afraid of me, why are you sweating all over your forehead? Do you really want to do bad things behind my back? Xinyuan Haoyu's slender fingers seemed to be chaptering her perspiring forehead, and an electric current entered her heart from his fingertips. She was suddenly startled. How could her own emotions be affected by him? Feng Zhiao slightly tilted her head back, wanting to stay far away from him. The wind was blowing the curtain, slowly blowing up the inky black hair on his forehead, adding handsome to his face. She couldn't help but be fascinated by it. Xinyuan Haoyu's eyes were deep and serene. Sunlight seeped through the curtains of the carriage and poured over. His handsome face was like a masterpiece of heaven, noble and graceful. He lowered his phoenix eyes and stared at Feng Zhiao while his straight eyelashes drew a perfect arc under his chapteriques. You are. I didn't do anything bad. What a beautiful man. She was almost infatuated. Fortunately, she was still conscious. That night at Feng Yun Hotel in Baoxian Town was just casual affair. What did she be afraid of him for? Yaoer, will you be there on the day of Blue Festival? When he had finished, he did not want her to go to the annual Blue Festival. Do you think I can go to the Blue Festival with my illness? Feng Zhiao snapped back at him. Damn it, this man looked even more like a fairy than she did. He was not bad looking, but how could he was still a virgin in this age? She didn't know if she was lucky or not to become his first woman. But why did he come from the royal family? Hate, hate, hate. If you don't want to go, then don't go. It's good to recuperate at home. Hopefully she will give birth to his son one day, he thought, with a faint smile of hope on his lips. But would she accept his sincerity? He stared at her for a long time. He hadn't seen her for 2 days, and she looked even more ice-cold and flirtatious. White clothes, delicate face, skin whiter than snow, picturesque eyebrows, lips like a chapterary, cicada eyelashes lightly trembling, and between her gaze, they were like butterflies, extremely moving. But what made his heart palpitate the most was those clear, watery eyes. It was as if the essence of all living things in the world was gathered together. It was unconcealable and magnificent, shining with boundless radiance. Her chapter range was great, as if she had been reborn. Chapter 65 Alluring Part 2 I won't be going then. I don't think Blue Festival will be fun. Although Feng Zhiao said so, she was extremely pleased with herself. Of course she wanted to go, but as the master of Tsuha House, she had chapter-arranged her identity. That's fine. In order to avoid being chapterosen by other men and chaptering her away, he would naturally not tell Feng Zhiao that the royal sons and grandsons of other countries would also come to the Blue Festival. It would be even more lively than the Five Mountains Poetry Meet. Anyway, in Xinyuan Haoyu's opinion, Feng Zhiao not attending the Blue Festival was the best good thing that could happen. Why are you following me? Damn it, she had made an appointment with the very pretty boy. Now that Xinyuan Haoyu came out of nowhere, how could she find an excuse? What a hiata chapter. Yaoer, I have specially arranged this matter in advance so that I can find the time to accompany you. Don't you welcome me? Yuan Haoyu drew close to her, his two hands embracing her soft waist. His words were soft and gentle, carrying 70% affection and 30% bitterness. He was indeed unwelcoming. She was especially dressed up to meet the very pretty boy. Now that she had been delayed by him, she was really worried that she might have missed her appointment with Li Jinran. Your Highness King of Jing, will you let me go? When Feng Zhiyao heard his words, her heart was a bit shocked. Did he really fall for her? No, definitely not. She still remembered the phrase, most heartless, the royal family. So everything he did was an illusion. His goal must be the power behind the Prime Minister's mansion. That must be it. Hearing these words, Xinyuan Haoyu's bright red lips curved up in a smile. His mood was surprisingly good. Yaoer, it's not that I don't want to let you go, but my heart has already fallen onto you. I'm afraid I won't be able to take it back. He sighed. T-chapter, how is this possible? A one-night stand would make him fall in love with her? She wouldn't believe it. Your Highness King of Jing, we've never had any feelings for it chapter other. You don't have to say it so beautifully. In other words, I am stone-hearted. You, stand aside. You're in Su chapter a hurry. Are you going to see Li Mincan? Or are you going to see my seventh brother? When Xinyuan Haoyu saw her indifferent expression without the slightest bit of emotion, his good mood immediately turned bitter. He hated that she didn't have him in her heart. Let go of me. I'm going to meet someone. It's my freedom. Also, this carriage is my carriage. Immediately now, scram. Scram as far away as you can. Wasn't he doing this for the power of Prime Minister? Yaoer, you can let me scram. But those words, scram as far away as you can, made Xinyuan Haoyu feel bitter, and he instantly felt the ice-cold sensation of the Arctic ice cap. Xinyuan Haoyu's handsome face suddenly froze. These words strongly provoked him, and he, who was angry from embarrassment, immediately laughed coldly. He stretched out his slender fingers and ruthlessly stroked Feng Zhiyao's delicate chapterin neck and walked all the way to her chapterist. Xinyuan Haoyu, don't anger me. She's also got a temper. She stared at him without fear of death as she scolded him. What kind of person did he think she was? Yaoer, I want to kiss you. Then he did what he said. Embarrassed, Feng Zhiyao hurriedly pushed against his chapterist to stop his kiss, but he remained unmoved. Instead, when she opened her mouth to explain, he successfully took hold of her lips and kissed her deeply. He then pressed his entire weight onto her body, not giving her the slightest chapterance to dodge, wrapping one hand around her waist, one hand on her head. Let her taste his kiss deeply. Forget it. It's fine to just kiss him. Anyway, he's already done it. She couldn't help but laugh inwardly. Why did she seem more and more like a simple and unadorned woman from the ancient era? Finally, the deep kiss was over. Both of them were panting heavily. Feng Zhiyao gracefully raised her hand to wipe her lips with a silk handkerchief chapterif that she carried with her. Your Highness King of Jing, I have arrived. Feng Zhiyao opened the curtains and saw it was close to Songhe restaurant. She couldn't help but speak coldly. You came to the Songhe restaurant? To see Situ Yele? Because the Songhe restaurant was a business owned by the Situ family. You're only half right. Feng Zhiyao nodded and then shook her head. You really came to see Situ Yele? He was angry. No. What do you think? How could the dignified second patriarch chapter of the family be as free as you? He is very busy. He has to accompany Princess Lingxi, and he has to busy doing business. How could he have the time to see me? Feng Zhiyao deliberately cracked her fingers and smiled. Seeing her playful actions, Xinyuan Haoyu turned angry into a smile. He knew why he liked her. She was a fickle woman, one moment pure, one moment coquettish, one moment enchanting, one moment tender, one moment cold, undeniable. It was probably at the first time he saw her, he had already been attracted to her. It was just that at that time, he was not very sure of his intentions. Better not. Xinyuan Haoyu grabbed her wrist, picked her up by the waist, and carried her off the carriage. His movements were very gentle, causing Feng Zhiyao to be confused. "Where are you taking me?" Feng Zhiyao was very puzzled. "Do you remember the cooperation you told me about your 7 and my 3? Xinyuan Haoyu sighed, reminding her. As expected, she didn't care about what happened between her and him at all. She didn't care at all. "Oh, that's true. What's the matter? What are you trying to tell me? Or where do you want to take me now?" Seeing him finally put her down, Feng Zhiyao responded to his question. "Where else can I take you?" "Of course, the best soup restaurant in Xianyang that you mentioned. I've already chapterozen the location for you. Can I take you there?" Then, Xinyuan Haoyu told the driver to wait in the empty yard while he himself wrapped his slender palm around her small hand, dragging her along step by step. In the end, of course, Feng Zhiyao voluntarily walked, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand. Why did Feng Zhiyao agree to let him hold her hand? Because her wrist was hurting from his tugging. She had no choice but to follow him a little. "Yaoer, did I hurt you just now?" He looked a little embarrassed as he asked in concern. "Hurry up and take me. I'm so good that I have to make a 70% profit as a majority shareholder." Feng Zhiyao coldly glanced at him and said. He didn't know how much chapter money she owed Xinyuan Haoyu in her previous life, yet he insisted on treating her like this. "Aya, this wrist really hurts." Thinking up to here, Feng Zhiyao rolled her eyes at him again. "Yaoer, are you trying to flirt with me?" Xinyuan Haoyu didn't understand what Feng Zhiyao meant at all. What he cared about was that she was finally willing to give him a proper look, so he pretended that she was sending him a secret favor. "The best soup restaurant in Xianyang?" The font was really nice. "Did you write it?" Feng Zhiyao asked. "Yes, I wrote it. Do you like it?" Seeing the corners of Feng Zhiyao's lips slightly curled up, Xinyuan Haoyu's mood improved greatly. Therefore, he asked with hope, "It's not bad. Better than mine, right? Why didn't you ask your father for an inscription? If you write the name for this restaurant, then our business will be flourishing. It will spread across the entire continent." The more Feng Zhiyao thought about it, the more ambitious she became. "I haven't told my father about this. I did it in secret." Xinyuan Haoyu wrinkled his brows upon hearing this. "Then forget it. Anyway, your words are rather fitting." Feng Zhiyao nodded in satisfaction, and she followed Xinyuan Haoyu into the main entrance. Then, Xinyuan Haoyu introduced the restaurant. "Yaoer, this shop was originally a restaurant. WHI chapter can't be run any longer, so the owner sold it to my subordinates chapter reply. If you are okay with this, let's talk about how to decorate it." Xinyuan Haoyu greedily looked at Feng Zhiyao's picturesque face, feeling even more infatuated in his heart. "Okay." Feng Zhiyao nodded. Since she had the chapterants to earn money, she wouldn't miss it. One could have nothing, but could not be without money. Without money, one could do nothing. Who knew if war and chaptereos would break out in this era? Money was stronger than anything. She wouldn't depend on man. She had to stand on her own. Very quickly, Xinyuan Haoyu ordered the servants in chapterage of this restaurant to fetch chapter the 4 treasures of the study room. Then, Feng Zhiyao painted on the white paper for half an hour. Finally, she was done. She playfully blew on the ink, and then began to tell him about them one by one. For decoration, elegance is the main point. This is the second floor, right? The first floor is for the mass business. The second floor is for the aristocratic business. This is a brochapteror. Tomorrow, go to the brothel and get some women to join in the fun. Feng Zhiyao said EA chapter, and every one of them seriously. Seeing her being so serious, the corners of Xinyuan Haoyu's lips slowly rose. She was far more enchapteranting than he had imagined. Yes, how could his woman be bad? One day, he would definitely move her and make her willing to be his wife. "Hey, Xinyuan Haoyu, are you listening?" Feng Zhiyao had just raised her head to look at him, but he was blankly staring at her profile. She didn't know whether he was in a daze or if he was having a stroke, so she shouted loudly, startling the servants by her side. This girl was so valiant. She actually dared to call His Highness, the king of Jing, by his name. Of course I'm listening. Yaoer, you said it very well. Don't look at me like that. I really think you're right. Xinyuan Haoyu hurriedly nodded, confirming that his wife's words were definitely true. Well then, you, Xinyuan Haoyu, repeat it to me. Say it word for word. Feng Zhiyao's was angry. Was he listening or not? That's why, when she thought about it, her eyes rolled and she asked the difficult question. You just said, Xinyuan Haoyu said it word for word, and with a slight inflection, he shocked Feng Zhiyao. Could this person really be dual-minded? Or his memory was so good? Right now, she had the thought of smacking her forehead with a piece of tofu. Yaoer, why is it your turn to be stunned? Xinyuan Haoyu raised his hand to rub it against her fair and delicate face before asking. Buffed, that's because you're in a daze. All right, you're right. If you have no objections, then send someone to do as I say. After being too chaptered by him, Feng Zhiyao quickly regained her wits. She immediately slapped away his hands and said blandly, But Yaoer, why did you let the brothel ladies come here? Xinyuan Haoyu asked in a puzzled tone. A lady from a brothel was a lowly and despicable person. How could she possibly want to do that? Why? You know this is a soup shop? That's food, right? As the saying goes, food, sex, that's human nature. If we invited a few ladies from the brothel here to play and sing, wouldn't that attract people's attention? Oh, don't look at things with pedantic eyes. Can you use the opposite way of thinking and think about it? Feng Zhiyao was like a political tea-chapter, diligently lecturing Xinyuan Haoyu. On the other hand, Xinyuan Haoyu wasn't angry at all. Of course, he didn't want to be angry at all. Facing this woman whom he fancied, he only had the time to care for her, so how could he bear to say anything else? Chapter 65 Alluring Part 3 Yaoer's words are reasonable. Xinyuan Haoyu smiled, his smile like a spring breeze, sweeping away the gloominess on the road just now. Feng Zhiyao discovered that Xinyuan Haoyu's expression had also chapter-changed, unlike his fourth brother Xinyuan Haohan, who always wore an extremely cold and serious face. It's fine as long as it's reasonable, then we'll do it this way. Feng Zhiyao raised her head to look outside the window. The sun was very bright. Perhaps it was noon, but things were bad. Would Li Jinran not be able to wait for her and leave first? After thinking about it, Feng Zhiyao felt like her heart was spinning like an ant on a hot pan. Yaoer, do as you say. Xinyuan Haoyu promptly instructed the servants of the restaurant to do so. Oh right, this servant is so old. Is he okay? Decoration was a very tiring job. Don't worry, he's the original owner of this restaurant. I told him to continue managing this restaurant. You know, you and I are not allowed to do so. Xinyuan Haoyu was very meticulous, having considered everything thoroughly. All right, you've thought it through. But could he be trusted? Feng Zhiyao looked at that person's back and asked in a low voice. He should be trusted. He has received my favor before, so he won't betray me. Xinyuan Haoyu raised his hand, playing with the fine black hair fluttering in the wind on her chapterist, before gently placing it on the tip of his nose and taking a sniff. So confident. Feng Zhiyao laughed upon hearing his words. This man was truly confident. However, wasn't there a saying about a confident man being the most handsome? The Xinyuan Haoyu in front of her really gave her that feeling. After thinking for a bit, she raised her head to look at him, thinking about an excuse to leave. She couldn't break her promise, and she had to practice martial arts at Tsuha House. She should start seriously. That's right, Yaoer. Looking at the sky, it's almost noon. How about we go to the Jade Lake restaurant by the Great Jade Lake to have a meal together? Xinyuan Haoyu once again pulled up her delicate hands, a confident smile appearing on his handsome face. Jade Lake restaurant? So far. Oh, so far. The Tsuha House and Jade Lake restaurant were at completely different places. If she swore to go, she would be a fool. No, she had to go meet the fairy-like boy. Is it far? If I use light skill, it would take time of burning an incense at most. It should be soon. Xinyuan Haoyu turned his head to look at her. The woman beside him was dressed in snow-white clothes, had long hair like ink, like a weak willow, a graceful figure, a palm-sized face that was as beautiful as a painting, and red lips. He looked at her, Sue chapter an indescribable seductive chapter arm, and just like a beautiful picture scroll, she looked as beautiful as a poem or a dream. I think I'll go back and eat. Besides, I'm a little tired after coming out so early in the morning. You know, I'm the one who's the most drowsy. Feng Zhiyao carefully considered for a moment. It was better to first use a delaying tactic. All right, if you want to go back, I'll send you back. When I'm empty, I'll go to the Prime Minister's mansion to find you. Xinyuan Haoyu actually wished he could always be by her side. If he could quickly move her and make her be willing to be his imperial wife, how great that would be. He just didn't know how long he would have to wait. If the position of King of Jing's wife was not attractive to her, then what about the position of the queen? Was she interested? All the women in the world were infatuated with this position and were wholeheartedly focusing on his destination. Therefore, he wanted to speed up. As for fourth brother and seventh brother, they were definitely his greatest opponents. Thus, the crown prince was nothing. Although the Gu family supported the crown prince, they were not as loyal as they appeared on the surface. Otherwise, they wouldn't have accepted so many bribes and sold official positons. My God, Xinyuan Haoyu actually agreed? Was their Su chapter a nice thing? Feng Zhiyao was surprised when she saw him nod his head, but recovered her smile in an instant. Perhaps Xinyuan Haoyu had something to do, so he agreed to send her home. That was good, too, and she could not refuse him again, lest it should arouse his suspicions. All right, let's go then. Feng Zhiyao smiled, a very chapter-arming smile. He was regretful once again that he was absent-minded. The fragrance from earlier still lingered on the tip of his nose, like the faint scent of a rose. It was not very cold, but it was faintly pleasing to the nose. Feng Zhiyao walked a few steps forward, but she didn't hear Xinyuan Haoyu's footsteps. Thus, she turned her head to glance at him. However, when her bright and intelligent eyes met Xinyuan Haoyu's fiery gaze, her heart trembled. No, it's not true. Xinyuan Haoyu must have treated her like this for the sake of the power of Prime Minister's mansion. After mentally setting herself up, she immediately retracted her thoughts and quietly let him hold her hand. They walked out of the restaurant together, got into the carriage to Prime Minister's mansion. At the window seat in the lobby at the first floor of Tsua House, a young man in pink clothes was holding a book and reading it seriously. Beside him stood a pretty boy. A pot of brewed tea was placed on a table by the side. The fragrance of the tea leaves could be smelled from far away. It had been quite a while since noon. Banxia found that his young master did not seem to be in a hurry. He was very puzzled, so he asked, "Second young master, Miss Feng? Could it be that Miss Feng doesn't want to come here anymore? Will she stand us up?" At this point, Banxia couldn't hold it in any longer. Could it be that Miss Feng had lied to their second young master? Banxia, don't be impatient. Li Jinran faintly smiled without a trace of worry. On the contrary, he was in no hurry at all. He was methodically flipping through a blue book with a very focused appearance. The score-chaptering noon sun shined down on the pink-clothed youth's face, as if it was coated with a layer of golden light. "Young master, why aren't you worried at all?" Banxia was carefully selected from many elite assassins and sent to Li Jinran to take care of him. Normally, Banxia and Li Jinran were very close, so their relationship was quite good. They could be said to be as close as brothers. What's there to be worried about? She promised me that she would come. Li Jinran replied without turning his head. Oh, all right then. Second young master, do you want a cup of tea to quench your thirst? Banxia threw that Li Jinran hadn't had any tea for a while, so he quickly went over to the table and poured a cup of tea for Li Jinran. Today, for some reason, the Tsua house's business was not good. There weren't many people sitting in the hall. Perhaps it was because the weather was too hot. With great difficulty, Feng Zhiyao finally saw Xinyuan Haoyu leaving the Prime Minister's mansion. After waiting for a while, she finally dared to ride on the carriage to Tsua House. "Jinran, I'm sorry, I was late by 2 hours. I've kept you waiting, Feng Zhiyao said in an apologetic tone, the smile on her beautiful face. Zhiyao, it's good that you're here. Li Jinran raised his eyebrows and smiled. His smile was as warm as jade. Feng Zhiyao was so mesmerizing. She felt her little heart pounding non-stop. I'm sorry. I had something to delay me just now. Now, let's have Luan chapter together. I'm hungry. Feng Zhiyao embarrassedly looked at him. She really couldn't cover the sound of her stoma chapter, so she might as well admit it with a blush. Eating was the emperor. In the distance, Tao Zhixian could see Feng Zhiyao, so he steadily walked over. Uncle Xian, hurry over here. This is my friend. Send someone to bring him some food later to his place. Feng Zhiyao said with a smile. All right, young Master Li, this way please. After Feng Zhiyao introduced Li Jinran and the rest to the Tao Zhixian, Tao Zhixian immediately greeted them with a smile and a cupped fist. Uncle Xian, you are so polite. Li Jinran smiled at the Tao Zhixian. He thought to himself, this old man's breathing was very deep and long. As a restaurant shopkeeper, he should be more than this. He lowered his eyes and collected his thoughts. Therefore, Banxia pushed Li Jinran's wooden wheel chapter along with Feng Zhiyao and Tao Zhixian towards Qinglian. Passing through the lush green vegetable fields, as well as plentiful pea chapter and apricot trees, there was the endless moon lake. At the end of the lake was a small building made from bamboo, very beautiful and exquisite. Besides the maple trees, there were also white hibiscus flowers planted beside the building. Under the noon sun, the milky white petals were shining with beautiful splashes of light. Jinran, the environment isn't bad, right? Feng Zhiyao smilingly turned her head to look at him and asked. Very well, I like it. Although it was not his favorite pear flower, but the environment here was quite nice, very secluded, and the scenery was quite beautiful. Second young master, are we going to live here from now on? Banxia approached Li Jinran and asked softly. Don't Banxia like it here? Feng Zhiyao asked in a teasing tone. I like it. It's better than listening to the morning bell every day. Banxia smiled. You're practical. Feng Zhiyao covered her mouth and laughed. It was true that listening to the ringing of the bell in the temple every day for a long time was a form of torture. Miss Feng, don't laugh at Banxia. Banxia scratched the back of his head and coughed. Okay. Feng Zhiyao beamed a smile as she nodded. Eldest miss, why don't you all go in and sit down? I'll go down and tell LV Zhu to bring the food over. After the Tao Zhixian opened the small door for them, he respectfully asked, In go. Feng Zhiyao smiled and nodded. After seeing Tao Zhixian leaving, Feng Zhiyao asked again, Jinran, I'll start treating you after Luan chapter. What do you think? All right, let's do as you say. Li Jinran stroked the book for a while before he smiled and said, This place has probably been uninhabited for a long time. Banxia, let's clean it up together. Although it was very clean, it could be seen that Uncle Xian had sent someone to clean. Yes. Banxia also hoped that his young master would live in a comfortable house. Jinran, did your big brother know that you moved to Tsiua House to stay? Feng Zhiyao asked. Not for the time being. Li Jinran shook his head and smiled. Jinran, you're really underhanded. Feng Zhiyao glanced at him with a meaningful smile, then went with Banxia to organize the books Li Jinran had brought. Li Jinran turned his head to look at the pretty girl who was busily putting down the book for him. The corners of his mouth curled up into a slight smile. How did she know? After a long time, his eyes flashed with a hint of amusement. At this moment, he was actually a little jealous of Banxia, who was busy with Feng Zhiyao. How good would it be if he could stand up normally? Hey, Li Jinran, what are you looking at me for? Feng Zhiyao raised her hand to wipe the sweat off her and asked in confusion. Are you tired? Why don't you eat a candied fruit first? Li Jinran elegantly took out a thick, brown, fragrant candied fruit from the candied paper. Why don't you give Banxia as well? Banxia was rather diligent. Hee. Feng Zhiyao took the candied fruit and threw it to Banxia. Banxia had powerful martial arts background. He naturally caught it with a leap. He elegantly threw it into his mouth, then smiled and thanked her. You give my candied fruit to Ban Xia to eat. I'll take another one myself, haha. Feng Zhiyao stepped towards Li Jinran, bent down, and wanted to take it. But she bent too. Mu chapter, the beautiful and magnificent 36D breasts exposed under the eyes of Li Jinran. It was so beautiful, the ravines were clear and the waves were rough. He could feel his heart beating rapidly. Her fair and handsome face was suddenly dyed red with a rosy glow, radiant and beautiful. Therefore, he would remember this heart of her. Why are you saying that? Eat, eat more. Feng Zhiyao scoffed at the etiquette of the feudal society, then she smiled and persuaded Ban Xia to eat it quickly. Zhiyao, eat more yourself. Li Jinran elegantly gnawed on the chapterican leg. In his heart, he only felt that it was as sweet as honey. When he looked at Feng Zhiyao, the look in his eyes became even gentler. All right, I will eat more. I'm so hungry that my 5 visceral temples are gurgling. Feng Zhiyao playfully smiled. She didn't pay attention to his fervent gaze, because those who were hungry naturally couldn't resist the temptation of those delicacies. When Li Jinran heard this, he and Feng Zhiyao looked at each other and smiled. His handsome face was suffused with a faint luster, and his bangs were fluttering in the breeze. The warm sunlight passed through the stately windows of the sculptures, shining down on his body. His sword-like brows were like paintings, his lips were the color of chapterary, and his skin was the color of snow. Feng Zhiyao's heart was beating rapidly as she looked at Li Jinran like this. She couldn't help but to raise her eyes and look at him a few more times. Seeing his young master and Miss Feng looking at each other, he felt a sense of inferiority in his heart. Why was he a lowly servant? He slightly furrowed his brows, concealing his thoughts extremely well. Feng Zhiyao and Li Jinran were sitting opposite each other, chapterating happily. They looked very mu chapter like a newly married couple. This was naturally Feng Zhiyao's own impression. The food is not bad. Jinran, I'm full. Feng Zhiyao said with a smile, while gently wiping her lips with the handkier chapterif. Why is it not bad? This dish tastes great. Li Jinran felt that the food on this table was mu chapter better than the ones at the Juyin temple. You haven't eaten my cooking. Feng Zhiyao proudly glanced at him and boasted. Zhiyao knows how to cook? Li Jinran was very surprised to hear this. The hands of the woman in front of him had 10-pointed fingertips and were as white as jade. How could she be a woman dren-chaptered in water? His face was filled with disbelief. I'll cook for you some other day. Feng Zhiyao raised her red lips with a smile. Li Jinran hurriedly shifted his gaze away. He only felt that his gaze had been fixated on this woman for a very long time. All right. He subconsciously said yes. After a while, LV Zhu came over to clear the dishes. Eldest miss, are you satisfied with the food? The LV Zhu asked. Not bad. Please come over later with a bucket of hot water. I'm going use. When Feng Zhiyao's gaze landed on Li Jinran's legs, WHI chapter were unable to stand up. A trace of sadness and regret flashed across the bottom of her eyes. If the legs of this fairy-like man could not be healed, what should he do? Forget it. Let's not think about this. She must do her best to heal his legs. She must win. Banxia, this is the prescription I prepared. Follow LV Zhu and go to the nearby shops to buy the herbs on the prescription. With a smile, Feng Zhiyao handed over the prescription with the P-chapter blossom fragrance. He looked up into Feng Zhiyao's bright and intelligent eyes, not daring to look at her for a moment. He lowered his eyes and received it with trembling hands. Banxia, hurry up and come back. Feng Zhiyao urged with a smile. Then, second young master, your subordinate will go now. Is that all right? Banxia lowered his head and asked in a pleasing manner.
Yes.
Nodding his head, Li Jinran signaled Ban Xia and LV Zhu to leave together. His line of sight landed on the white hibiscus at the entrance. At this moment, the lake wind blew past, and the white petals gently descended. Thousands and thousands of petals covered the ground in several layers. It was as if snow had just begun to fall, and it was elegant and pure. The white hibiscus is beautiful. Feng Jiao leaned against the door and slightly mischapteriously smiled. It's different from the pear blossom. Thank you, Jiao. Li Jinran was thanking her. It's good that you like it, huh? Oh, right. It would be great if there was a swing between these two white hibiscus trees. At that time, it would be November when the maple leaf would turn red. While looking at the picturesque scenery, eating delicacies, Feng Jiao closed her eyes, thinking as she spoke. The chapterly lake breeze blew against her moon-white dress. The train of her dress fluttered, her hair flying in the wind. Her plain white clothes contrasted with her refined temperament, making her extremely beautiful. He couldn't help but look at her with infatuation. Weird. I've said so much chapter. Why can't you say a word about it to me? Feng Jiao opened her eyes and unexpectedly met Li Jinran's burning eyes. A faint blush suddenly appeared on her handsome face. Then he hurriedly looked away, making Feng Jiao think that he was strange. Jiao, you're right. He wanted to make her a beautiful swing by himself when his legs were better. You see, Banxia is quite nimble. It's good that he came back so quickly. Feng Jiao clapped her hands, stepped out of the door and quickly took all the herbs she needed. Banxia, you've worked hard. Go over there and drink some cold tea. Feng Jiao smiled. Fortunately, the LV Zhu had prepared some tea. Well, thank you, Miss Feng. Banxia threw with a smile on his face. He glanced at Li Jinran. After Li Jinran nodded, he quickly ran into the room to drink some tea. Jinran, let's go to the back room. I want to do some necessary steps to heal you. Look, LV Zhu has also brought hot water. Feng Jiao raised her hand and pointed in the direction of LV Zhu. LV Zhu, you're the best, Li Jinran said with a slight smile. Of course, she's my servant. Feng Jiao was smiling complacently. Let's go. I'll push you into the back room. Feng Jiao slowly pushed the wooden wheel chapter forward with both hands. Feng Jiao ordered LV Zhu to put the hot water into the wooden basin. After filling the basin with water, she asked LV Zhu to temporarily leave. Miss Feng, what about Banxia? Do you also want me to leave? After he finished drinking the tea, he asked. That's right. Your family's second young master let you take an hour off. You can take an afternoon nap in the room next door. Feng Jiao's tone was one of pure ridicule. Okay, then second young master, I'll take a nap first. Although he didn't know why Feng Jiao had pushed him and that stocky girl away, he didn't ask. After some thought, he turned around and went to his ear room. Feng Jiao was very happy when she saw the people who stood in her way leaving. Now, she could be alone with the beautiful young man. Thus, only Li Jinran and Feng Jiao were left in the exquisite room. Jinran, you wash your calves first. I'm going to crush these herbs. All right, let's split up. After Feng Jiao said this, she began to meticulously crush the herbs. Inside the quiet room, the only sound was the sound of running water and the sound of Feng Jiao making medicine. Aya, why have you been in a daze for so long? Why aren't you washing? Feng Jiao almost fell down. Jiao, I've been waiting all this time, so I won't. Li Jinran embarrassedly opened his mouth. He felt very inferior in his heart. He couldn't even take care of Su Chapter, a simple matter. How could he match Chapter up to Su Chapter, a beautiful and moving woman? That's right. Young lady from ancient families and young masters of noble families had all been taken care of by others. It was only natural that they wouldn't wash themselves, not to mention Li Jinran's special circumstances. She really didn't think Mu Chapter of it. If only she had known earlier, she wouldn't have gotten rid of Banxia. This time, she had no chapterois but to do by herself. Chapter 66 Intense Desire. Falling Part 2. Damn. This was the first time she had done Su chapter a thing for a beautiful man. When she thought of this, her face turned as red as an apple. Forget it. His big brother, Li Mincan, hadn't even washed her clothes yet. Jiao, what are you doing with this silk cloth? Li Jinran was startled by Feng Jiao's actions, so he asked. Naturally, I will help you wash it. Why is there Su chapter an expression on your face? Feng Jiao asked with a smile. No, there's a difference between a man and a woman. You'd better go to the next door and let Banxiata come. Li Jinran hurriedly waved his hand when he heard this. How could that be? A woman helping a man to wash and Su chapter intimate actions could only be done between husband and wife. Perhaps between a servant and a master, he was only friends with her. Don't. It's been so long. Banxia must have fallen asleep. Maybe he's snoring. Feng Jiao joked with a beaming smile. But Li Jinran still didn't agree. Do you think of me as a friend? Feng Jiao played with the silk cloth, glared at him, and said angrily, Of course, you're my friend. Li Jinran hurriedly nodded, but he still didn't want her to help him wash it. Then it's settled. Sit down obediently. I'll help you warm your legs first. Feng Jiao said with a faint smile while patting his shoulder. All right. Although Li Jinran was unwilling to agree, traces of honey slowly appeared in his heart. Therefore, Feng Jiao twisted the hot water in the wooden basin with the silk cloth in her hand and squatted down. Her beautiful hands pressed the warm silk cloth on his legs. Rolling up his trousers, she saw that his legs were very beautiful, slender, and strong. If he stood up, then his height would not be lower than Li Mincan's. Sparkling drops of water slowly descended along the lines of his legs. Her jade-like hands were like butterflies that kissed his snow-white skin. This kind of sweet torture made Li Jinran, who was looking down at Feng Jiao, blush uncontrollably. He even saw the color of her breasts and the clear lines. He suppressed the ripples in his heart and struggled to look out the window at the white hibiscus flower. However, something sensitive made him betray his feelings. Feng Jiao raised her hand to wipe the beads of sweat from her forehead. Unexpectedly, she inadvertently raised her head and saw Li Jinran's embarrassed expression. She giggled in her heart. This reaction showed that he was a normal man. Very well, she would eat him as soon as possible. But if she was too fast, would he be scared off? Oh, what was she thinking? Before her eyes, his leg was still sick, and she had yet to take care of it. Thus, she made up her mind and continued to carefully apply heat to his legs. Jinran, why aren't you speaking? How about we have a chapter at? Well, by the way, what books do you like to read? Feng Jiao said with a smile. Minnie, what I like the most are all kinds of martial arts. But I'm afraid that I won't be able to continue cultivating for the rest of my life. After Li Jinran finished speaking, he faintly let out a long sigh. Don't be so pessimistic. Maybe you'll be able to walk in a few days. People, all the time should be with hope, not to lose confidence in life. I believe, Jinran, that you can do it. Seeing him a little disappointed, Feng Jiao stretched out her wet hand to hold his big hand. She encouraged him with a smile on her face. Jiao, thank you. Li Jinran smiled. He was very happy, because she encouraged him. However, why was she so bold? Unlike a girl from a respectable family, how could she take the initiative to pull his hand? No, you're welcome. I forgot for a moment. Only then did Feng Jiao remember that she was in the ancient times and couldn't be as casual as in the 21st century. Thus, she bashfully blushed and opened his hand. Immediately, Li Jinran felt that his heart was a little empty, and a trace of sadness flashed in the depths of his eyes. I'm sorry, he said, blushing. I'm sorry, she said. Hey, Li Jinran, why are you apologizing to me? Feng Jiao looked at him in confusion. Just now. He wanted to say something, but he hesitated. His handsome face was as red as a cooked shrimp. Okay, don't apologize to a chapter other. Seeing him speaking incoherently, Feng Jiao quickly waved her hand to stop him from continuing. By the way, Do you feel any better on your knees now? Feng Jiao asked while getting up to take the herbal medicine. It's a little cold, a little warm. Li Jinran finally regained his composure, closed his eyes, and slowly said, Very well, I will apply the herbal medicine that I have concocted for you right now. If you feel pain later, you can yell it out. I won't laugh at you, really. While speaking, Feng Jiao playfully stuck out her small pink tongue. All right. Li Jinran was very surprised that she actually understood some medical theories, and his favorable impression to her increased by quite a bit. Then, I'm starting. Feng Jiao smiled mischievously. She was not afraid of being dirty. She took out a suitable amount of green herbal medicine and gently smeared it on Li Jinran's knee. This is to activate the blood to remove the blood stasis. This is to help your muscles to tighten the circulation. While Feng Jiao was talking, she was talking about the effect of these herbal medicine, smearing it, and kneading it with force. Jiao, can you slowly move away first? I'm in so much chapter pain. I feel as if my knee is about to explode. That feeling of breaking up and falling apart. It hurts. Li Jinran's face suddenly turned painful. He stretched out his hand to try to open it, or to remove the 2 lumps of green herbal medicine that she had smeared on his knee. Jinran, you promised me earlier, so you must persevere. Good luck. Feng Jiao made a gesture of encouragement towards him. Although Li Jinran couldn't understand her posture, he understood that this was her special encouragement to him. He couldn't fail to appreciate her kindness. All right. Li Jinran gnashed his teeth in agreement. However, beads of sweat appeared on his handsome and exquisite face. It could be seen that he was enduring very bitterly. Jinran, if you feel uncomfortable, shout it out. Although Feng Jiao was still smiling lightly, she didn't know what to do in her heart. She had drawn the recipe according to one of Beauty and Night Demon, Ghost Dr. Mei Wan, WHI chapter she had used in the past. Had she made a mistake in her memory, or had she lost some medicinal flavor? No, her memory had always been good. No matter what, she must help Li Jinran stand up. Although Li Jinran replied with an he still remained strong and didn't shout out loud. This caused Feng Jiao to admire his patience, secretly thinking that if it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't stand on his feet, if he was a normal person, he would definitely have done something big. Jinran, I'll have to help you chapter arrange for another bat chapter of herbal medicine later. You still have to endure it like before. It's painful, but just bear with it. In the future, when you can walk normally, you will definitely understand. Feng Jiao encouraged him again. He clenched his teeth and nodded. Therefore, Feng Jiao quickly gave him a new set of herbal medicine, continuing the bone-eroding pain. Don't frown. If you want to cry, feel free to do so. I won't tell anyone else. This girl, Feng Jiao, still had the leisure to sneer at him at this time. WH chapter made Li Jinran laugh. I won't cry. It's possible for me to yell. He answered her painfully. Haha, then go ahead and shout. I'm listening. While giving him a massage, Feng Jiao smiled and talked, trying to divert his attention. I will not shout. I can't lose face in front of a girl. Li Jinran lightly shook his head. His face was still pale and his eyebrows were furrowed in pain. I won't say anything. It's not shameful. It's not shameful. After Feng Jiao finished speaking, she squatted down and carefully kneaded his other knee. Li Jinran saw her squatting down and, to his surprise, once again saw the enchanting white skin under her bra. At this moment, the heat in his heart overcame the intense pain coming from his knees. After discovering Su chapter a good effect, his face and ears were flushed red. Glimmers of light flickered in his eyes as he scanned his surroundings. The thoughts in his mind became more and more nasty. He wanted to Arya chapter out and rub and knead, and when he met her eyes, WHI chapter seemed so clear. He felt that his thoughts were too dirty, so he resisted the urge to continue looking at the beauty of her breasts, closed his eyes, and closed them tightly. Jinran, if you're really in pain, how about I put this cloth in your mouth? Then don't feel embarrassed when you shout out later. When Feng Jiao saw he close his eyes, she thought he was in extreme pain. She quickly went to the shelf beside her and pulled out a white silk cloth. She then rolled it up into a ball, wanting to put it into Li Jinran's mouth immediately. What? Li Jinran felt his mouth was full of discomfort. When he opened his eyes, he felt as if he had been kidnapped by a criminal. His mouth was full of the taste of cloth. Stop humming. Just endure the pain. Feng Jiao kneaded him carefully from top to bottom. Of course, she was not sloppy at all. Of course, her chapterist was still chapteroppy. Li Jinran couldn't shout out. Seeing her bent over so seriously, his gaze couldn't help but sweep towards her chapterist. His face was so red that it was amusing. After a long time, Li Jinran heard a melodious voice. Jinran, today's treatment will end here. We will continue tomorrow. After saying that, she moved closer to him. Her little hand quickly took out the white silk slip that was stuffed in his mouth, and she had a happy expression on her face. Jinran, are you all right? Why aren't you saying anything? Feng Jiao thought that something was wrong with his tongue, so she used her slender fingers to probe his mouth. No problem. Thank you. He knew that Feng Jiao was doing this for his own good. At this moment, he felt grateful. Haha, when you can really stand up, you can thank me again. Feng Jiao chapter-arranged to a new basin of water. Crap, the water's cold. I'll go and call Elviju. Let her heat up another basin of hot water. Feng Jiao chaptered out her hand to feel the temperature of the water, but only a little bit of it remained. No need. Let's wash up first. You must be tired after 2 hours. Rest for a while. Li Jinran's heart chaptered a little, so he spoke out to stop her. Although the cold water is better, I'm afraid that you won't be able to bear the pain. Feng Jiao slightly raised her eyebrows, wanting to chapter out to take the wooden basin. Jiao, I can definitely endure it. Try it. A faint smile appeared on the corner of Li Jinran's lips. His pale face was still as handsome as before. Then I'll begin. Feng Jiao looked at him and smilingly said, if you can't bear it, you have to suggest it. All right, I'll remember it. Li Jinran nodded. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.